just for everybody, if you come up and speak, or anybody up here, if you do speak into the mic really clear. Our recording device is not working, so all we have is how we can record on YouTube, and it doesn't pick up the sound quite as well, so speak directly into the mics if you can and when you come up. Appreciate everybody for coming today. I've asked Vicki to say the opening prayer, and then I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for all of the many blessings that Thou hast given us, and we're thankful that we could be here this day. And we're indeed thankful for all the moisture we have been receiving, and we ask You to continue to bless us with that we need to provide for our crops and other things that we need in our life. We're thankful that we can live in this great country, and that we live in this state and county where we do, and we appreciate all of the blessings that Thou hast given us and the lifestyle that we are able to live here. And we ask You to be with us this day, that we'll be able to make good decisions and have an open mind and be able to express the ideas we have clearly. And these blessings we ask and hope for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any approval to the minutes from April 15th, or any changes that we need?
I have none.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of April 15th, 2025.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any follow-up action items? Okay, 10:05, the ratification of indigent burial for Mario Jesus Valenzuela. Okay.
We discussed this, we have a budget for indigent burials, which this is within our budget, so I would move that we ratify the indigent burial.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the monthly financial review. Not yet? We'll come, okay. We'll run to the 10:15 real quick. Discussion and possible approval of a business license for Hot Hands Fabrication and Powder Coating LLC. Owner is Briar Proctor.
So it's a welding, metal fabrication, and powder coating business.
I believe they're in the same building as Predator Armor. And that's
They
where
are.
they are running their operations out of.
I guess they don't need a health department signature, do they? Okay. Yeah, it looks good to me. I make a motion that we approve the business license for Hot Hands Fabrication and Powder Coating LLC.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's Bonnie.
Okay. We'll go back to the monthly financial review.
Sorry about that.
You all right?
You guys are pretty quick. So we met with
Commissioner Johnson on April 22nd for the March financial review. Each of you would have received all the reports via email as well. Did you guys have any questions for us? Okay.
It was pretty straightforward this month.
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
quick and easy.
Yep. Okay.
You ladies do a good job.
Thank you.
I should have laid that out flat. Okay, discussion and possible approval of Abby Ivory's employment.
So we had a conversation about the Stewart and Patrick relationship, who were doing our economic development. R6 proposed using Abby Ivory to cover that, and so as a META board, the META board discussed the transition phase that were happening there. I sent a proposal with the R6 contract, and then also kind of Abby Ivory's deliverables for a recommended $20,000, which was what we ended up at the end of our relationship with Stewart and Patrick. That was the same amount. They've agreed that would be sufficient. Those deliverables were a negotiation and a collaborative process with Abby on the things that the META board would like to see and what Abby felt like she could deliver for that contract agreement. And so our recommendation from the META board would be that we move forward, change that relationship from Stewart and Patrick to R6 contract with Abby Ivory, and have her start working more collaboratively with the META board and Adam and I specifically. So
Sorry, Jacob, was there a contract, did you say?
there's
So is
a,
1020 and 1025 the same thing?
oh, yeah. So
So she would just be included under the R6?
yeah, so that would be the R6 contract,
Okay.
would be that conversation with Abby Ivory, so.
That contract stated 4 hours a week, is that what I'm,
Uh-huh.
okay?
Now, that doesn't mean she'll necessarily be in the county for 4 hours a week, does it?
No, not necessarily. My guess would be she'll be more than that. Knowing Abby, I mean, her real interest is to see the economic development strategy and plan start to build out. And she's been exceptionally helpful up to this point, even working under no contract at all. I mean, obviously, we do have a relationship with R6 anyway, right, where we do have, I mean, our county is contributing to the R6 pool, and we have help there from them anyway. But Abby's additional help on top of that, which is not included in the contract, is what we're specifically contracting for, so.
Yeah, she seems like she's got a good work ethic and
Yeah,
a good knowledge about grant writing.
yeah, exceptional knowledge and a lot of passion about it. And so we haven't had any negative experiences working with Abby, so.
So sorry, I know all the counties are under contracts. Do we know how much Joab, Sevier, and them are paying, and how much time we're getting? Because 4 hours seems out of 40 hours a week.
So originally, their
Doesn't seem-
original offer to us was, I think, $36,000 or $46,000, but we didn't feel like that we needed that much time because we have our own internal processes happening. And so we negotiated that rate down from their original offer to us, down from, I can't remember if it was 46 or 36, down to $20,000, which was just the amount that Stewart and Patrick had left on, and that's why we did that, because we felt like that internally, we don't need some of the other offerings that they had. And so that's why the number was reduced, but I don't know what the other counties are paying, but I do know that their original ask of us was twice what we eventually negotiated down to.
And will this just be till the end of the year?
I think it's a year-to-year contract.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can
It
negotiate
is
that.
at year to year.
Yeah.
So I may have overspoke. Is there a separate contract for Abby than there is for R6, or is she included in the economic development service agreement with R6?
No, I think that that's included in the Economic Development Service Agreement, yeah.
So maybe we can just strike this item and act on the next one. Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
And really, my questions have just been answered because the way that it was listed, if it was going to be included and employment, so. And also, Mita met last week and I reported the 20,000 off, so I will be adding it back on,
Okay.
so.
So I really have some, well, not major heartburn, but I have heartburn over this because how long have we had an economic development person, and can one person in this room show me what any county economic development person has brought to the county? Whether it was a full-time employee from a few years ago to a student, Patrick, and all we're doing with this Mita board money, you know, other until recently was pay somebody to do something, and nobody's done anything other than maybe some paperwork, but no true economic development has occurred with any economic development person that I am aware of.
Sure. Those deliverables that we sent from Abby, again, those are the, those would be the outline, right, that would start to build out an economic development plan and a strategy, and each of those deliverables is what her focus would be. So we identified those 5 priorities that we sent, and those would be the priorities of the time that she would spend addressing each one of those priorities. And then we put a measurement on those that we sent you yesterday, and that measurement would be what we would measure against, right? And I think to your point, that's why we're going away from the Stuart and Patrick relationship, is because our expectation was, hey, we're paying you this money for you to tell us what needs to happen, right? And I think they were waiting for us to tell them what they wanted for that money. And so it was kind of an expectation issue, I think, that they were expecting us and we were expecting them. Obviously, the Rural County Economic Development Grant, they were managing, right? But Abby will manage that. And then we're going to get way more specific about the measurement and the process that we expect her, right? Those deliverables. And so we identified those 5 main priorities. And that's what she said, yes, those would be the priorities of the time spent for the money that we begin to work out. And here's the measurement of each one of those by the end of the year to see if it's actually worth our time and money, so.
Well, do we have anything that can measure it sooner? Because I don't want to get to the end of the year and be like, well, we're working on it, we met these goals, but now give me another year. Because I don't want to get stuck in a long-term contract with, again, people that aren't bringing economic development. And I've had plenty of conversations with people in the county that we got stuff coming on our own. We don't necessarily need somebody. We got Transwest is here today, they're coming in, and we've got stuff in the pipeline that I don't want to pay somebody $20,000
If we don't get the value, right?
if we don't get anything.
Yeah.
We've got to see some
Yeah, what's the
economic.
value proposition? For
Yes.
sure.
It does have that in here, the agreement shall terminate automatically unless renewed by parties.
So, and I think it's a year-long contract, is that right? So what I
It's a
can.
year-long.
Yeah.
It's a year-long.
I might be able to speak to that just a little bit. One of the things that I've seen is that, and this is with Abby specifically, which is who we're going to be working with and who we are working with, we have a lot of potential that is unrealized. And so while we can have some big projects show up, and certainly that is very helpful for our tax base, and it definitely brings some high-paying jobs, it doesn't mean that that's all there is out there. And it would be nice to be have the prerogative to be a little bit selective. One of the things that Abby did as she came in, I talked with her and said, we really haven't done a very good job of responding to the state RFPs. They come through periodically and they say, hey, would anyone be interested in a project that looks like this? And we've given some responses and said, we might be interested, that might fit us, but we haven't had marketing materials. And she said, oh, well, I can do that. And so the thing is that she's very astute and she's very responsive. And she went right out and got the information and made it happen. And she has been using those to respond, and we're getting more responses and more interaction, and the companies that are coming in are getting exposure and hearing, oh, Millard County might be a good fit for us. Let's go have that conversation that we would not have otherwise had. And so while there are some good things that are happening, it puts us in a position where we're able to have more engagement, more opportunities, and really to realize things that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So while there's some great things happening, it seems we can also get more, and I think the value is there. I've seen from Abby, she's willing to step in and kind of fill the gaps. None of us are perfect at covering all the opportunities out there, and her interaction is at a different level and a different location than ours. As commissioners, you go to many meetings, we go to many meetings, we have a lot of contacts, but none of us have exactly the same contacts. And as a regional area, she gets a lot of contact and is able to offer support and direction and information, and it's just another layer. And it's been very effective so far. I've seen more out of the last few weeks, I'd say actually last almost 2 months, of working with Abby than as far as making progress than we've made for years.
Have you got a copy of the brochure she made?
She sent that out and had us kind
I
of preview.
do, I don't have, I'm sorry, I don't have it with me.
We should have maybe had one.
But she's really good at identifying where we're doing well and then where she can step in and add value. And she's, I'm very favorable towards working with her. She's been tremendously responsive.
Okay, so, and she has been. So we are the last county to be paying R6 for any type of economic development. My concern is that for the last 3 or 4 months, she's been going, working extra hard or extremely hard to show that we should pay her.
I hope so. She's bright.
Okay, yes. Okay, what happens tomorrow when we pay her the $20,000? Are you
So-
two, well, the expectations are you two make sure that she stays on track and continues to do what she has been doing.
Absolutely.
Because that's my concern is, I've had conversations since December with Travis about them wanting Millard County to participate in R6's economic development program. And so I feel like a lot of the work that they've been putting in, a lot of effort they've been putting in it is to show us
The value.
the value.
Once-
And I'm afraid it'll drop off once they've hook, lined, and sinkered us for 20 grand.
Once upon a time, I was a single man. And I made a lot of efforts trying to convince my wife to marry me. And it's one, it looks a little different on the front end, and then afterwards you say, okay, well, this is, now I've got you, let's continue that relationship. This is a year-by-year relationship. They know that it's going to end and that they'll have to have this conversation again. Abby and I have talked about that as well, that, on an ongoing basis, what are the things that we're going to do that are going to continue to make this a desirable thing to be part of? And they're sensitive to that. I don't think you're wrong to say that they're making additional effort. I think that's a natural thing that we've all experienced or at least can understand. But I don't believe we're going to see that taper off as much. And there is, again, it's a 1 year, we'll see how it's going. We talked about those areas that there would be some deliverables, including some grant writing and the responses to RFPs and so forth. And so we're going to be able to come and show receipts and say, yes, there's not only has there been efforts made and results given, but here's the specific things that have been worked on. So there's a measure of accountability on those deliverables, but I would hope that we would receive extra attention. If we don't receive extra attention before we've entered into a contract, I'd be a little disappointed, quite frankly. But
And I think one of the things that's different than previous years is that we now have internal touch points, right, that we haven't had in previous years outside of just the META board. We now have, Millard County touch points that will be overseeing that. And you'll see each one of those deliverables is tied to one of those touch points, right? So that there's a collaborative effort with the internal touch point as well as R6. So I think that helps a lot. And the money that we are paying it comes from her ability to secure that grant, right? I mean, it's coming right out of that grant, so.
Commissioner Johnson, would it make you feel better, and would R6 be willing to add a provision in the agreement where they agree to provide quarterly updates on what they are doing specific to Millard County?
That may actually be.
I think it's already actually
That may be in.
I didn't-
so we have it in the.
It doesn't say
actually the META
quarterly,
level.
but it
Yeah.
does say provide updates.
Yeah, and it's at the META level, right, that she will be meeting and presenting to the META board, right, on what those are. So that was part of the priorities for Abby, is that she would work more closely with the META board and present at those meetings what those updates would be, so. But yeah, I think to Attorney Harris's point, we can absolutely put those, ask for that to go in the original contract, not just in Abby's priorities, so.
I think I'm more interested in her helping with the grant writing than anything, because I think we have missed out on some grants that will help the county a lot. And I know she'd need to work with the auditor's office with that, too. I mean, I'm for economic development, but I'm not just for bringing everything we could possibly bring in. We need to be,
Selective.
yes.
One of the, and along those lines, as companies have come in, I'm going to use the example of the geothermal company without mentioning their name, but she's been very responsive to go out and to talk with them and say, what types of resources will you need? What types of values are you looking for? Can we help? Where can we add even more value and bring more to the table? Whether it's whether it's job training but she's engaged not just with finding companies, but also with trying to make sure that as they're coming in, that we're getting all the opportunities within the county in that exchange, and so in that interaction, which is really a wonderful thing to see.
And I think, too, it sounds like 4 hours a week with us, but she's doing this full-time, and so we're benefiting on every contact and every relationship for her full-time work, even though it's not directly associated with Millard County, right? This is what she does full-time, which none of us are able to spend those types of connections and that type of time, right, building those relationships. And so we will benefit from that, even though we're only getting 4 hours, we're going to benefit from her full-time work. So I again, a recommendation from the META board, after long discussion in our META board meetings, is that this is an appropriate step to take, for sure.
And I believe some of the same concerns were brought up as well. I think that that's a very accurate way to look at it, and that others have seen that as well and said, how do we make sure that we get the value? Because these are real dollars, and let's make the most we can happen with those that will get the most value. And so there's a sensitivity there. Abby is also aware of that. So I think the return and report will really help. If you'd like, I'm more than happy to provide updates at any time on what's been happening recently and where it's at. I'm very confident that there'll be enough progress on multiple areas that there'll always be value that could be shown.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I appreciate the discussion, because we need to have this kind of discussion with every tax dollar we spend, and we don't always do that. So I appreciate the oversight. I think it's our goal as a county that we should get the most benefit for what we spend. Not a culprit, but we look back historically over this, what's happened is, we talk about Abby. This is not a contract with Abby. This is a contract with 6 County. Abby's employed by 6 County. She's not really employed by us. Where previous Stewart and Patrick was a separate contract. We have found that wasn't very useful. If you go back 3 or 4 years ago, as a member of 6 County, we got this service provided with the fee that we paid 6 County. So if there's any culprit in this, and I realize we're having to discuss what direction do we want to go. Well, 6 County has come back in the last year and says, we're not going to do economic development. We're not going to do Meals on Wheels. This isn't the only thing that they've threw at us. So if we're going to point our finger, we need to point our finger at, and we've talked about this, if we start doing Meals on Wheels, if we start having to pay for economic development, we already talked about this. Do we want to be a member of 6 County? Obviously, they get very concerned when we tell them we're not going to be a member. But all this isn't caused here. All this is caused because of that, because we belong to an organization that has value, but they've retracted many of the services that they're doing for us. So this is who we're paying as 6 County. And this is the discussion. If we want to continue to improve, there's no question our Economic Development Committee, and you brought up, Trevor, was not functioning. I'm not going to argue that 1 minute. It was just dysfunctional. What did they really do? We talk about Stewart, i.e. Stewart Packard. Well, it's harder to find. We know we have been delinquent in using our resources the best and taking care of those things. I don't think any of us would argue that, but there's been a lot of good things happen. in the last 6 months, and what we need to decide, will Abby continue, or the contract with Smith County, will it continue to contribute to the direction we're going here? I don't know if we have 2 members of our META committee that was in that discussion in the audience. I don't know if they want to say something, probably not, but they had this discussion. And so this is why this seems to be at least a subject for us, and I think it's good that we discuss it so we know what direction we're going. I agree with the value, and what we're saying is, yeah, we need to see that value, so thank you.
I want to be fair to Stuart and Patrick. I think a lot of the lack of at least perceptive value came because we were not super organized internally, right? And so we didn't provide a great framework and a great structure for them to be able to function under. And I don't think it was anybody's fault. So I want to be fair to them. But now, right over the last year, having 2 internal resources that are actually Millard County employees working collaboratively with that META board, we have process in place, we have procedures in place, we have accountability in place, we have a strategic plan in place, which I think all aids to the successes that we're seeing, right? That this grant money is actually getting used now, it's getting spent, we've got scholarship programs in place. We're seeing actual real turn of that value now. The value proposition is expanding, and we can see that there's momentum happening. The META board is very active in trying to move this forward now, and it's a way more structured process. So I think that just the fluidity of our architecture internally has helped with that. So I don't want to point fingers at anybody and say that past META boards or past, Stuart and Patrick weren't effective. I think that it's a collaborative effort that we've moved this ball forward, so.
Excuse me, we actually have 3 members of the META board that's here today. I don't know if they want to comment, but that's not saying this solves a problem, but we have a whole new structure, outline, vision, 4 months. This has not been in place very long. So after a year or 2, we will be able to see evidence, whether what we did works or not. But we've only had it there 4 months. In my opinion, I can see a lot of evidence about what's happening. But it's only 4 months old. We had half the committee turned over. We have Jacob on there now and Adam that's assisting. So we have a different structure than what we had the last year or 2.
So if we make a motion, we're not renewing our economic development service agreement, are we? We're making one. This is the first time we've had one with R6, right?
I believe that's
So
correct.
the wording would be a little different
Yes.
Yeah,
than
probably
here.
need to
Yeah.
restate. That might be on there slightly.
Yeah, it says renewal,
improperly.
but it's not a renewal, it's a, no, you're good. I just want to make sure we say it correctly.
Well, before they provided us that. We had economic, just like they provide other stuff, so they're heading a different way, and it's up to us to decide how this Abby kind of works through them, and she, as you've mentioned, she does have other contracts. But I think it's a good discussion how we can benefit, or if we can benefit. We got some great people on META committee, and includes Adam and Jacob, and we have a lot of good ideas, but there's areas that they don't touch. Abby is a higher level. I will just say this, which she wasn't obligated to, and this isn't part of her really role, but she was in the legislature many days. Abby, because I'm over META committee, she called me on several different issues. And so I did not have trouble getting her attention on things that affected us, even though something like that, public relations in the legislature, would be maybe not totally in her job description. She was very aware, and the things she's seen that, I think this affects your county and you. She was very attentive, at least reporting what she was doing, so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to,
I just want the commissioners to know, this agreement doesn't discuss a minimum hourly rate for or a minimum hour requirement for Abby, and it doesn't talk about updates. I just want you to be aware of that. I think it's fine to move forward with it. I just want
Is
to be
that
clear
the
with
So
that.
we
Something
actually
you have
have,
then?
we actually have 2 documents. There's the contract itself, and then there's another one that we've
The
actually got
priority.
internal
I
that's
read
priority
a
list.
4-hour thing somewhere. I saw.
But
Yeah, I
yes,
did
the 4
too.
hours, the 4 hours is shown, and Abby and I talked about that too. As far as actually hour by hour and keeping track, generally that's about what she anticipates the time that she'll spend. And she's happy to explain and to show what she's done. It may not be 4 hours dedicated every week where, every Monday between, noon to 4, she's there. But that's the amount of time she anticipates spending. And so that's not a contractual term. That's an expectation that is being set, and it's going to vary. That's the amount of time that she
This isn't to keep track of
anticipates.
your hours,
Yeah,
it's an
and I think The
expectation.
value proposition will come, right, as the deliverables are delivered or not delivered.
Yeah.
Right, and we can terminate at the end of this year at any time. So,
And
yeah.
the only reason I brought up the hours is because if the other 5 counties are doing it,
Sure.
how much is she splitting up her time and how much are we paying? Now, I know the deliverables are something else, but I just want to make sure that,
Totally,
I'm not asking her to keep track of her time by any means.
for sure.
But
And-
are we,
She had asked if she
Give
should
my
even
share.
if that should be taken out. The concern that she had, and the reason why I suggested that maybe we at least leave that note in there, the 4 hours a week, is to kind of ensure the expectations are not that she's going to be a full-time employee for Millard County or even a 20-hour-a-week employee for Millard County, but she will use her time the very best she can, do the very best she can for us with the time she has. And so I encouraged her to leave the 4 hours in our notes, just so that there's not an expectation that she's putting 20 hours a week in. She does not have the bandwidth for that. But I am confident that she'll be very responsive and use the time that she needs to.
Well,
to-
this
to help.
contract has actually been negotiated. Originally, R6 come back with, if you want to use her at this level, it's going to be X amount of dollars, which was twice. The committee actually discussed, this is what we need her for, what's fair, and actually made an offer. So after a year, it's totally negotiable. If we don't feel like we're getting any value, we'll do the same thing with our previous contract. I mean, we had a previous contract that we cut for 2 years before we got rid of the contract, so
do
we
you
can.
have that in there, Elise? Just to make sure the 1 year's, because honestly, that's more
It's
important to
1
me. If we
year,
want to be done
in there
a year.
somewhere it says 1 year, which is
Okay.
a 1-year contract, which will be from the 15th of May this year to the 15th of May next year. Them dates are in there somewhere.
So what the provisions we need to be included in the contract?
Can I see them just really quick?
I don't have them, that's what I'm asking, they're not with the contract, so.
If they're not included, you can't bind
It's
us to
not
do
binding,
that.
no.
You can have that understanding, but it will
Yep.
never be a breach of the agreement.
Of course.
Which is
Yep,
fine.
Yep, we're not going to be able to go back and be like, hey, you shorted us. They'll say, well,
Okay,
it was a,
just so there's that understanding.
sure.
Okay.
And they could come back next year and say, whoa, we're spending a lot more time, we want more, and then we can negotiate it. We don't have to comply with that. Or we could go back and say, well, we have some skills, we're not using you that much, and we can make an offer.
Sure.
We'll worry about that next year, so
Yeah, we'll worry
let's
about
entertain a motion.
Thank you, guys.
Did you
Are we ready
you
with
want me
the
to make a
contract?
motion? I would move that we approve the Economic Development Services with R6 Regional Council.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then just for the record, because on the agenda, I put renewal because I didn't catch that it was R6 and not the G, whatever it was. So just know that it was included.
It's just a new one, okay? It's not a renewal.
This is short.
All right, 10:30.
Contract release, or do you want to sign mine?
I'm sorry?
Did you already give them a contract signed?
I did not.
Or do mine as well?
Yeah, do hers. She's sign in.
Okay, 10:30, discussion and possible approval of vendor or inmate phone systems and execution of agreement. How are you guys doing?
Good morning, how are you?
Morning.
Doing good, thanks.
Good. I'm Lieutenant Bennett with the Millard County Sheriff's Office. We're just here talking about signing a contract for our inmate phone system. As you may or may not be aware, our previous phone contract expired about a month ago. and we've decided to go with another vendor. So we just wanted to get that contract signed, I guess is kind of where we're at. The previous vendor we were with, they had to raise their prices and was going to cost us a lot of money, and the new vendor doesn't cost the county any money.
Okay.
And they're going to give us a part-time employee for 20 hours a week to manage that system and keep it up and running.
So originally, this was put on the calendar because there was going to be a termination fee that was calculated monthly until the end of the term, but they have since removed that. So I believe this can just operate under the electronic or telephonic bid provisions under the procurement code, which it is the lowest, correct, Lieutenant Bennett?
Yes, I filled out the paperwork for the middle one already, but yeah,
Okay.
it's $0 is definitely going to be the lowest amount of money we can spend on a contract.
Right. So, I mean, you can approve it, but under the code, they could go with this anyway.
So we're just hoping to get the contract signed, I guess, is where we're
Okay.
at.
So since the county doesn't pay anything, the inmates are responsible for the fees, is that?
Yeah, the company makes their money off of fees that they get from the phone calls themselves, just like any other phone company. Recently, they just passed a new law, the Martha Wright Reed Act, that doesn't allow counties to, we used to make money on the phone system, but now we're not allowed to make money anymore because of the Martha Wright Reed Act. So now it's just kind of a wash. It's just zero.
Yeah, this new company will actually be going with tablets for the inmates. That'll provide also educational opportunities for them. They can complete GED courses through the tablets. They're incentivized. If they don't have funding to purchase entertainment such as movies or music, they can complete courses that will then earn them credits to be able to view that media as well. So it does give them incentive to better themselves while they're incarcerated. So there were two companies that we looked at. Both were about the same. The one that we want to go with is called ICS or IC Solutions. They are the company that has a in-county technical support that will be assigned to us that will help keep the system up and running, which is one of the problems we've had with our current system, is getting the support to fix problems.
So part of the phone service is internet also?
Limited access to the internet. They're only allowed to access what is provided through the company on the tablets, not general internet access.
Okay.
Who was the previous contract with?
Previous contract was Securus, was the name of the company. We've been with them for about 10 years, and the last few years, it's just kind of been declining.
Okay. If it don't work, you gotta change.
Well, one of the unfortunate side effects of that Martha Wright Reed Act was that Securus was, many of the services that we were getting for free from Securus, they were gonna now start billing us for, and so that's why we determined, yeah, we're not gonna continue that contract and incur additional financial burden, so.
I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the new vendor for inmate phone services. And what is it, ICS Solutions or
Yes, IC Solutions.
IC Solutions?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Got nothing? Okay. Somewhere, right there. Thank you. Okay, discussion possible approval of resolution 25-5-6, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Millard County, Utah, implementing reasonable child abuse prevention policies and procedures. Jacob?
So as part of the new legislation, SB 158, all government entities with a specific program that has child services, which would include most of our recreation, 4-H, anything like that, has to implement a policy that shows child abuse training. We have to run all of the names of anybody that would be participating in that youth care through the sex offender registry, both at the state and federal level. And then we also have to have a tracking system and a retention record system in place for that to happen. So it's going to be a pretty big lift for all of the counties, which would mean that any of our rec coaches, right, that are volunteer coaches, have to be ran through that registry, and then also that they have to participate in the being able to identify and report child abuse. And then we have to track all that and retain all that information. And so this policy is stating what the county is going to do. And then we also, I've been in communication with Recreation, which primarily will be where we'll have the most effort about training. We're going to try to find something as comprehensive as possible with as minimal time as possible, right? One of the things that we're afraid of is that it kills volunteerism, right? That was Brooke's biggest concern. But it's an obligation that the county's under, and so we want to move forward with this policy. We think it states what needs to be stated, and it gives the direction that the state code is obligating us under. And then the training, we're working through right now, trying to find a already built USIP training that's already on our current system that we can just send out, but we're working through that right now to figure out what the best possible approach is on that. They are already implemented at Recreation. Any of the volunteers for spring sports are being ran through the registry and just being tracked on an Excel spreadsheet within the department itself.
So once you've done it once and have been registered, gone through the whole certification thing, whatever, is it a lifetime thing or every sport? Or?
The wording in there is regularly, and so it doesn't define that, right, Elise?
I think the best practice would be every year do the check, and I think we have in there every
3 years to do the
but
training.
third be required once a
Yeah.
week. Because something could happen in a year, or someone could move here from out of state.
Yeah, and so I think anytime we hire a volunteer, whether it's the first time or the second time, even within a year, we're going to run those names through the registry, right? No matter
But they don't
what.
have to do the training, right?
But the
That's not
training
on them.
will be.
Because I'm worried about the volunteers.
Yeah, the training will be every 3 years
Is
is what we're hoping to do, which qualifies under the regular in our definition, so.
Okay.
Elise, did that bill have a fiscal note on it? Probably not.
I don't even know if I noticed.
The impact the counties would be.
All I saw is that we didn't
Yeah,
have records.
we need to look at the fiscal note.
Yeah.
Then the
Yeah.
next question, is there any assistance at all? Or, because obviously this is one of those things that fiscally impact
$0 bill.
our county, that we take it all out of our own checkbook, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, a good cause, but
Well, don't we have access to the lists anyway, so that it's
Yeah.
not going to cost us anything
Yeah,
other than
and-
time
and-
to look it up?
And the registry time's very quick, right? I mean, and we have, the process in place now just takes seconds, right? Input the name, runs it through the database, so that's not gonna be the time-consuming part, right? It's going to be the training part and the record retention part, but it's great. We'll put a good process in place, and we'll just make sure. It was supposed to be implemented May 1st, so we're really close to compliance on that. So we're already in the process of getting the obligation taken care of. So I think we're in good shape.
so complaints with training, does it have any hours or anything, or just say they're trained?
It just has reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, reasonable?
And
So-
we've found one
Just so we
USIP
get the
training.
message over, we don't have to do an hour or 2 hours?
No, yeah, and
Just
we're-
so we get the message over.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it's just, right, reporting, identifying and reporting abuse.
And that takes some time. but-
Yeah, so anyway, so we're, our goal is to get that as comprehensive as it needs to be with as minimal time as possible, so.
Now, did I read something about 25, if you're working with 25 participants or something, so if they're just coaching like 10 people, do they get checked?
Yes, they still have to. They define the youth services organization as one where there are 25 or more children, so I would take that as the league or whatever. And then it talks about, there's language in there where they're even supervising, and it says a child. So
Okay.
even if it's just one kid.
Yeah. Yeah, so our practice is going to be that for anybody that is 18 or under, that's volunteering or coaching or an employee, will go through the training and do the
Okay, yeah, that's
registration.
good. I didn't know what
There's no
that,
exemptions for numbers or time or anything.
I just didn't know what that 25 was for, because I thought, probably ought to be checking them all.
Totally. So,
Okay, thank you.
Entertain a motion.
I would move that have we got the resolution? I haven't seen it, but. Yeah, well, okay, I would move we approve, I didn't look at it, approve the resolution 25-05-06.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call.
Roll call vote on resolution 25-05-06 as discussed. Commissioner Blackham?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, discussion regarding Millard County's possible participation toward development of pickleball courts in Delta.
This is just an update. I know it was brought up in public input at the last meeting. Since that time, Ms. Thompson went and spoke to the DNR. They did not like the idea of a long-term lease. I didn't get clarification on whether it was a no-go for sure, but it sounded like they would prefer to get a survey and do a subdivision so that they can count that as part of their contribution. So I wanted to put that back in front of you, commissioners, so you could make a decision about what you want to do moving forward.
I think if, we need to work it out some way to make this happen.
So it is site specific, which means even if you subdivide that property, they have to review the grant process in order to use this new parcel.
They have to
The
review it.
grant that's been approved is site specific.
Well, so in that case, should the commission also decide if they would like to be the recipient of the
That's
grant?
the other one, is rather than subdividing it, the commission.
Dan, can you come up to the mic, give us our options?
Would they be willing
So,
to transfer that grant to us?
So give us our
Well, I'm
options.
sure they are.
So I'm not trying to poach any grant or anything like that, Denton Peterson. But I do know that that grant was granted is site-specific for the location that they proposed in Delta City. So in doing this, if you were to subdivide and deed over a property where they could contribute in kind, it still would have to basically void the granted grant, and they'd have to renew the application, and at that point, it would be open to other options. One thing a commission might want to consider is, rather than deeding property right in the middle of the rest of the county rec stuff over to Delta City, is just applying for the grant yourselves and then putting the pickleball court where Delta City wants it, but it's still owned by the county. That would be the other route,
And probably the county will be the one to maintain it anyway.
Yes.
would be my guess.
So do you think we could still make that happen now, or is it going to have to be another year?
Well, so as it currently sits, the grant has been approved and granted to Delta City, but again, it's site-specific. So if they want to move forward with that grant, they would have to do so in that space that it's been approved for. If they decide that they don't want to do that and they want to pursue this other avenue with the county property, it would necessitate basically reopening the grant application process, so.
Can you convey that to Mrs. Thompson?
Yes, and just so I'm clear with your position, would it be your priority to be the recipient of the grant if that's an option, or are you still willing to subdivide?
I would prefer to get the grant ourselves.
Okay. Okay,
Is that where we're going?
all right.
Okay. Update on the Transwest project.
My name is Monica Ellis. I'm here on behalf of Transwest. As one of the conditions of our conditional use permit, both of our conditional use permits, we provide quarterly updates. I expect you guys should probably have that in your hand shortly, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to come and let you know in person kind of what's going on with the project and give an update, because construction is going to start here in Millard County
maybe next week. So a little history on the project itself. The BLM awarded Transwest the notice to proceed in April of '23. In June, the Barnard Wilson joint venture was selected as the EPC contractor. So we are the design build contractor. Barnard Construction and Wilson Construction each have a lot of history, like 75 plus years independently building power lines, as well as a lot of other infrastructure. So a good mashup here. Our JUOP construction started on the 1st of May, so here last week. And like I said, we're going to be going to work.
Is that in just our county? That date and previous lines have been, okay, that's,
In JUAB, we started.
in
on last
JUAB,
Thursday.
okay, that's, so we're just,
Yeah.
them dates referred to in our county, our JUAB county, okay.
So Millard Construction is going to be grading, doing the dirt work on our terminal pad just north of the IPP station. So that construction is about 70 acres of grading, and we are hiring local, bringing in West Side Grading to come in and be our subcontractor for the Utah terminal. So bringing in a crew of about 12 aside from West Side to oversee the environmental. We have the monitors and project staff that's coming in, safety crews and stuff like that.
Can you describe to me that station, what it entails? Is it a switch yard or what?
Absolutely.
What are you doing? Obviously, you got a line.
So it is a.
What do you actually, what does that station provide? What are you doing inside that station to?
So it is a terminal site with a.
And pull your mic up closer if you will.
Absolutely, sorry.
Thank you.
It's a converter station.
Okay.
And so our project is 730 miles of transmission line. We'll be bringing DC current in from Rollins, Wyoming, coming down, and there at that converter station, we'll be switching it to alternating current system to continue the progression of that 730 miles down to the Crystal Station in Nevada. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that clarifies a little bit. So I understand. I kind of knew, but I need a verification.
Perfect.
What's really happening, particularly from you.
Understood. So other stipulations in our conditional use permit, we are orchestrating a emergency services meeting. It sounds like we're getting close to buttoning that down, making sure that law enforcement, hazmat, EMS knows where we are this season, has the low down on kind of where everybody is coming from, providing the county with the grading plans, and again, providing this quarterly update. Any other questions?
I'm excited that it's getting started, so that'll be awfully fun to see it.
We are too,
starting to go
Commissioner
up.
Johnson.
So,
We're really excited.
Capacity in the line, I mean, and I'd chat with you when you, obviously this line was, the forethought and implication was to take power from Wyoming, wind generally. Does that fill its total capacity or not? Or do you have other, like, let me say, like I know there's a nuclear project in Kemmer and other projects like that. Do they have access to transmit power through that line or no?
That's a wonderful question. I know that it's a lot easier once we get.
Here's
past
somebody
the
that thinks they
AC.
can
Barry's right
answer.
here. Save the day.
Barry Schwitters with Barnard Wilson Joint Venture as well. I believe the answer to that question is with the resources that they have planned in Wyoming, that it will likely be at capacity as it's currently
Okay.
designed, but I would
So that's a
defer that
maybe?
official
That's a
question
maybe?
to Transwest.
Is there enough production with solar, with maybe solar or particularly wind in Wyoming to fill that total capacity then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. And then at the, what we call the Wyoming terminal near Rawlins, Wyoming, they do have access to additional resources through tie-ins to the Pacificor system, as well as at the Utah terminal site near Delta, tying into the IPP station so that they can get the most capacity out of the line.
So how much capacity does that line have?
I'm not the technical expert on that, so
Well, I'd have a hard time understanding what you told me anyway, but I'd like a figure.
Sure. I think they were talking about 3,500 megawatts is what the capacity is, but we would verify that through the appropriate channels with the engineers and others, so.
How many acres or towers does that take in Wyoming to produce that much? Would you know?
Their wind project?
All of Wyoming?
Yeah, I don't have the.
When I drive through Wyoming, there's a lot of them.
From what I understand, it'll be the largest wind farm as constructed within the continental United States when it's.
And that's considering all their locations, a wind farm would be.
Correct.
Not one place, but it'd be a consolidation of obviously different
within the
places.
Carbon County, Wyoming area.
Be the largest anywhere, I guess. Okay.
For clarity, that is a separate contract within Transwest LLC, not under Barnard Wilson Joint Ventures contract, so.
Don't worry, Bill, I drive through there all the time. There's plenty of space for plenty of.
Yeah,
land.
I'm not worried about filling it up.
Having been there over the last year, there is plenty of space for more if they want to expand.
And I've heard they get more wind than we do.
I can attest, it is rather windy in that area.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate the update, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna jump down to the 11:10, discussion regarding Millard Care. Oh, okay, we're striking the discussion regarding the road access of David Dye at the 11 o'clock agenda item. Okay, 11:10, discussion regarding Millard Care and Rehab.
Can we,
and parcel.
can Adam tell us what happened there and how that was resolved? David Dye, or is it not resolved?
They said they're going to try to work it out
work it
themselves.
out.
Well, that's what I'm just wondering, you had an issue, maybe tell us what the issue was on.
I don't think Adam really, this isn't an Adam thing.
I usually talk with Southern Lisa's number and say, it's really nice to solve the problem.
And then I turn around and ask Denton if he'll handle the road issues. We don't have information, Bill. We don't know what road he's talking about.
If it's the one I thought I got an email from him on, it was a road going through where the egg farm is, and the egg farm came to us, and they were told that that really wasn't a county road anyway, so they didn't
Well,
have.
that's an Adam issue, if Adam told him it wasn't a county road.
And so
I mean,
anyway.
he's the one that
If
says
they're gonna
it's-
get it worked out, sounds great to me.
Yeah, he just requested that we discuss it.
I think we're having a
we're not
discussion we don't
supposed
need
to
to worry about
discuss
it
it,
this
okay.
time.
He just wanted to work it out with the private owners before bringing it.
Right. What it consists of is there was a piece that was divided, and they did not consider access to the piece when it was divided. It was an ag split, it did not come through the county planning and zoning or through this board. And so now they're left with a piece that without access. And so it's somewhat of a self-imposed issue, and they're working it out with the surrounding property owners. They had asked the eggplant about it, and there's not a valid access or right-of-way at the moment through them. So, but they're working it out, and we generally encourage them to work it out. And of course, there's some other things that can come into play, but it doesn't, there's nothing that really could be considered by the county commission at this time.
Thanks.
Thanks, Adam.
Sierra, you got some thoughts too?
Well, I talked to him to kind of find out where the road was and kind of help him that way. And when I talked to him, he said that he would take a little bit more time, that he may be back, but he wasn't gonna come today to talk about it, so.
Okay. All right, now the 1110. Discussion regarding Millard Care and Rehab and parcel numbers D 3872-5-1 and D 3872-5-2.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the email that they did request this to be outside of commission meetings, so I deferred it to
Okay.
Attorney Harris.
The closest purpose of a closed meeting under this is strategy sessions to discuss the purchase or sale of property. I think clearly that would allow you three to go into a closed meeting to talk about your strategy in purchasing it. I do not think it extends to a meeting with both in a closed meeting.
And I don't know if they necessarily wanted it as a closed meeting, they just didn't want it during the commission meeting. I don't know what they hear.
The only other option would be to do a work session. An open meeting is an open meeting, so whether it's a commission meeting or a work session, you can still, there's no problem unless it qualifies as a closed session, which.
Would a work meeting, would this particular work meeting need to be recorded and minutes taken on the floor?
It would be treated like a commission meeting.
But it would be a scheduled time.
Correct, it would just have to be noticed.
And it's actually noticed for 11:10 on the agenda, and it's strike and it's and it's noticed as part of the agenda.
I think we need to have the discussion, I don't know how to do it or when, but, you know, we requested that they own the properties under our Cal Center. We requested that they give us some options. We requested that they transfer that to us. It's about an acre, acre and a half, and so obviously we need some discussions how to proceed.
And we're not going to have discussions without the three of us because nothing happens when it's one of us. So they've either got to deal with all three of us in the public, which can happen today or can happen another time, but we're not going to discuss one because we can't get nothing done when it's either just Bill or me or Vicky. We've all three got to be in this meeting. So if they don't want to buy in on that, then I guess they don't want a meeting. That's what it comes down to.
And as a practical matter, your recording system isn't going to work anyway for a closed meeting today.
So it sounds like we'll just have to talk to them another time, but it's got to be a public meeting.
They have about 10 minutes. It's only,
Yeah, they have.
Should we go on and then see
Go
if
on
they
to the
show up?
next item.
Evelyn just said that they're expecting 11:30.
I sent the email to him, but it was at 11:10, and that's when he said, we prefer it to be outside of the meeting, irregardless, we'll be here. So they're planning on being here at 11:10.
Okay.
yeah, probably just move forward.
So do we have any other way to record it except for YouTube?
Which we're at a public meeting anyway, so it's going to be on YouTube anyway.
Are you talking about a closed meeting?
No, because we've had public meetings where we just turn the recorder on, don't we? Not all of our public meetings have been on YouTube.
Correct.
Yeah,
This
but
is-
our actual recording system is down. I've sent
Yeah.
an email to IT to help them get fixed for the next one, but there was no time. to
Okay.
get it fixed for this one.
Here he comes, right here.
Do we need to move on till 11:10 and then come back to this?
This one,
Yes.
I don't know if anybody else is coming to join with him or not.
Are you the only one coming, Kurt? Or do you have more coming?
I have one more coming, but not on this particular issue.
Okay.
Can we just make sure that everybody who is here right now has signed the roll while we're waiting? I already put you on there, Dennis, so you're on there in bright red.
that means you're not even good for yourself.
It's the color that I have, so.
Okay.
Are you ready for us then, or?
We could do like a public input or other business and just keep going.
He said he's waiting for somebody, but not this particular issue.
For the parcel, it's just you?
Yeah.
Okay. We're ready for you then.
Okay.
But I guess to be clear, we were told that you may not want it necessarily part of the commission meeting, but this is going to be part of the commission meeting.
Okay.
That's the only way we can get all three of us, unless we do it for a later date.
And either way, it's going to be recorded as a work session or a meeting. So.
Which is fine, I just want to make sure we're not combining the two issues. So the meeting we have scheduled after is for the land under the care center. This agenda item is for the tax exempt parcels. Am I understanding that correct? I didn't review the parcel numbers to see,
No,
but
explain that again. I don't,
No, we didn't realize that.
okay.
Sort of, the tax exempt parcels.
So you have two separate issues that need to be discussed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then does it make sense to go into BOE and,
Yeah, I think this is probably BOE, isn't it?
Yes,
That would be BOE. And then the meeting that I was referring to that I thought this was, has not been noticed. So we can-
I think that is, you want the care center discussion?
yes.
That is the 11:10. So if you want to push that until after everything else is done,
Which of those parcel numbers is the care center plot?
both of them.
Well, no, this,
No, that's
the
only
parcel
one
number
plot.
should be BOE because they're talking about the tax exempt status. That's different than the property. And those parcel numbers are the two parcels that we haven't, I'm assuming are the two parcels that we have not agreed on a tax exempt status.
No, that is not correct. So these parcel numbers are the parcel numbers where the care center sits.
Okay.
It's that land use
So
discussion.
that part,
Be-
that's a parcel number, is that right, Denton? Is those parcel numbers a parcel?
So both those parcel numbers are land on which both the hospital and the care center sit, because the property line actually runs horizontal instead of vertically.
Yeah.
So the parcel numbers are both.
So the care center
So-
sits on both of those two parcels,
And the
Oh, okay.
hospital sits on,
and the hospital sits.
The hospital sits on them too, okay.
But if you commissioners want to push that further down the agenda, you can do that if you want to start going through the other items, including BOE.
okay,
Yeah, and for that one, we would want to wait for our other.
for the
our other
BOE
partner.
one.
Yeah, for the care center plots, which I can't seem to find. I didn't print that document. I thought I did, but anyways, yeah, so if we could push that and wait, that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do we have any other public input? Okay, any other business?
There's one there.
There's one.
And then I have some too, just a couple, but.
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Just real quick, I just wanted to let everybody know, department heads and elected officials, that we'll be sending out the fuel card policy for those that have the fuel cards with pins to sign that policy. That's never been done, but we did adopt the policy, so just watch for that. And with your cooperation, I'm sure they're watching, so we can just get those signed agreements back. And if they need a PIN number, it just needs to be secure, so it's not going to be on the forms we send out, but they can contact my office for their PIN if they don't know what their PIN is.
Okay.
So-
So can I ask a question on that? So for our deputies who drive the vehicles, they receive that as well?
Yes, anyone that drives a vehicle and wants to use the full fuel card.
Unless they want to pay for it themselves, they need to sign.
Land Enrollee, Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands of the state of Utah. Just wanted to remind the commission about our meeting in Richfield tomorrow. It's discussing House Bill 48 that was passed this year in state legislature. It's dealing with wildland to urban interface. It's going to discuss the county assessing fees for homes that are built in high-risk areas of wildland fire. They'll have, our state office has been put in charge of administering this program, and I believe as well as doing all of the lot assessments. None of this stuff will come down until the tax year 2026, so not this coming November, but the following November when we're paying our taxes. That's when that will be implemented by then,
So describe what House Bill 48 did or is trying to do?
So it's a bill that was introduced by Representative Snyder. It's dealing with assessing fees to homes that are built in high-risk wildland-urban interface areas.
So what's the definition of that?
And who decides where those are gonna be?
All those questions will be answered in that meeting tomorrow.
And what if I don't want to decide where it's gonna be because I don't necessarily agree with the bill? Because those fees that they're asking to assess are gonna drive people out of their homes. They're pretty steep,
So
they're not cheap.
they're going to take our assessment, add to our assessment, and
Yes.
a tax assessment, and then everybody's gonna call Trevor.
No, not everybody, it's only gonna be like, I think the
I
first year is
think it was
25 homes.
they had a meeting in Iron County and Washington County this last weekend, and these same concerns came up, and I know that there is there's going to be some wording in there that's going to make sure that the counties are not going to be the ones that are responsible. The counties can say that these are state fees, that the state is making.
But we still have to
making
collect
pay.
them
It-
and
it-
distribute them.
It was passed in
It
law.
still
so-
comes on our bill that's got Millard County on it.
You're
When
right.
you get in the mail.
Kind of like
okay?
the school district.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep.
Trevor, will you be to that meeting?
I'm going to it.
Okay.
What time's it at?
It's at 10 a.m. tomorrow in the Sevier County offices
You have
building.
6 county that day, don't you?
Yeah, but they're coming over here.
Okay.
I'm having my meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, so they can be back over here at 11.
All right, well, that don't work good for you. Are you gonna go then?
I am.
All right.
And I'll be there. Again, like I said, they'll have a lot of the details that you're asking about. I'm not sure how the fees are assessed. I think it's based on a square footage of the buildings that are on those properties.
So what are the
It's at a pretty high
suggested,
amount, isn't it?
what
I'm
are
not
the,
sure.
what are the suggested fees? Is
I
it in
don't
the
know.
bill?
I don't know. I don't know what the suggested fees are, and I don't think they know exactly what those suggested fees are gonna be yet either.
And then the money goes where?
The money comes to the county, and it also goes to Forestry, Fire, and State Lands for doing the lot assessments or being responsible for the lot assessments. So
So it goes to, we collect it, goes to an unelected committee,
I believe so.
okay? Just wondering.
I think so. Again, these are awesome questions you guys bring up tomorrow in that meeting. They should have a lot of those questions answered for you. This is new to us. We were told that this is happening, and we were put in charge of it without any of our consent or our office's agreeance to any of this as well. So Representative Snyder introduced it, and it went through pretty fast. Came through right after all of the California wildfires. Some of the things maybe that to be aware of that would be changing with this is, and our Adam, he can probably, he understands a little bit of the Wildland Urban Interface Code that the county has adopted, the 2006 version of the Wildland Urban Interface Code for our counties. That's something that anybody that lives in the county, not in a municipality, they have to follow those rules when they build a home outside of a municipality. There is a 2013 Wildland Urban Interface Code that I think is a little better for, and some counties have adopted it, some of them haven't. The state only requires you to have that 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code adopted, and we do. In the future, with this new bill, all municipalities will also have to adopt these Wildland Urban Interface Codes. So I do know that there's roughly 800,000 homes in the state of Utah that will be affected by this. There is only 8,000 in central Utah, in the 6-county area, and a majority of those are in Sanpete and Sevier counties.
Who draws that line? Does the counties draw planning and zoning, or
So there's a,
is there flexibility where they draw the line, or?
yeah, so there is some, I sat down with Adam a couple of years ago and created a wildland urban interface zone area for our county, and told them that this is the areas that are wildland urban interface. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything inside of that wildland urban interface area is going to be assessed these fees. They're only high-risk areas, and we don't know what that looks like. Looking at the map, so there's a map in a computer program called URAP, UWRAP. You can get on that and you can zoom into Millard County, all the municipalities. You can see what areas are high risk and which areas are not high risk. And we're only talking about the homes in the extreme area of those maps. And those maps are what we'll start with. It doesn't mean that's the final say-so on what's going to be there. I have heard a few preliminary numbers of only like 15 homes in Millard County fall in that extreme risk. But I think that will change as years go on. I think that'll move a little bit. I think they're just going to create this starting map of where they're going to address what homes are where, and do the lot assessments. And as the years go on, they're going to probably move that line of where the extreme areas and the extreme zones are.
There's not as much discretion as it may seem. The code describes characteristics and then ranks them. And so if you have hillsides and there's density of fuels, it becomes pretty evident what classifications would apply. And so there's very little discretion. It's more of determining what those areas, where those areas are at. But it's very clear in the criteria what would qualify and what would not qualify. So it's not some arbitrary thing where we're drawing circles and saying let's hate on these people. It's simply which areas would have characteristics that would be a higher risk for and we've had those events in this county before, where if there were to be a wildfire, that it would be necessary to ensure access and to try to slow down propagation of that fire through structure and so forth.
Would the landowners have the option of clearing combustibles away from any structures far enough that it'd be a good fire break?
Those are elements of that code and are requirements depending on what
Right.
level it would be at.
Right. Adam's right. We've done a lot, as me as the fire warden in the county, which I'll tell you something in a minute. Anyway, we've done a lot of work in the area around Fillmore, Virginia Hills up there, creating ingress, egress with the county road and starting that project and trying to implement getting better ingress, egress, which I think is a part of that formula that puts people in high risk. We did a big fuel break, which helped a lot with the Halfway Hill fire that we had. We had a fuel break that we'd already done prior to that. So there's always constant work going on by our division, by the county, by the fire district, to help mitigate some of these issues. There's still some homes and areas that need a lot of work around, and there's planned projects for certain areas, grants to be put in for to get funding to do fuels reduction projects. The tamarisk removal in Leamington, Lindell that we've been working on the last 4 years. All of Leamington was in the red because of all of that heavy fuel loading along the river, and that's annexed into the city limits right there along that north side of the railroad tracks. So, we've mitigated a lot of that in there. So hopefully all of this comes out in these lot assessments when we start doing these lot assessments. And we don't know if it'll be our office that is doing the lot assessments. It could be we hire out, the state hires out a contractor to do the lot assessments. Some of the lot assessments will deal with, and I know the Wildland Urban Interface Code also deals a little bit with home construction material, different types of material to construct your homes with that are more fire resilient, things like that. So real important to be to that meeting tomorrow. They'll have a lot of questions. There's probably going to be a lot of upset people, so we're ready to answer all your questions. So, and some questions I'm sure we won't have answers for yet, but we'll do our best to try and, let you guys know what's coming to you guys. The other thing I was going to talk about is I have taken a new position as the fire management officer for the Central Utah. I got my boss, Fred Johnson's job, applied for that in February, and I got into that position in March. Copeland Anderson, who was my assistant, he is functioning as the Millard County Fire Warden. He's detailed into that position through this summer, and we'll probably hire that this fall sometime. So I just wanted to let you guys know formally that had taken place. I know I'd send a text out or if you, I hadn't done anything formal yet, so anyway.
Dennis, do you still have a comment? Okay. Okay.
Question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Jacob, do you have any sell or transfer of surplus property?
I got a couple.
Sorry, Bill has
Another business. I think you're all aware we discussed the Aries thing, and in conversation with them and the state CIB, I have indicated we will not proceed with any liability. They said, well, we got it wrong. Fine, you come back and change it. As far as commission, I think we agree. We're not going to take liability. And so if they get their statute in line and change, because this is a new statute, I don't think they got it figured out. Why, we'll continue to support at the level we normally would, with just, fine, you're welcome to come in our county, we'd love to have you here, but we don't want no transfer of liability on us. I'd like, maybe Jake, could you come up and just report? I want, Jake, about a long time ago, we just worked with a utilities audit, and we've had some successes, and I mean, we're continuing to do it, but what we did is audit. If you know, in our financials, there's a lot of utility bills, like hundreds of them, and so this person went through and audited all those utility bills, and I'd just like Jake and Bonnie to report. This is the very first of it, what we found.
Yeah, so dating back clear to last year, we met with a group out of St. George who did utility assessments for the county, and what they were looking for to see if they were coded appropriately, that we were getting taxed on each of those utility, what are they called, Bonnie? Just like
There's different types of tax. There's sales tax and there's other fees.
Yeah, and each of the utilities that we have assigned to the county, depending on what they're servicing and what they're used for, would be taxed differently. So he's found that we were being overtaxed about $12,000 a year. And so we're getting reimbursement from those right now, and then, of course, ongoing, that's going to be fixed. He's also doing a gas assessment for the utilities of our gas through the new gas company, Enbridge, or whoever the new one is. Yeah, and so anyway, so it's going to be a significant amount of savings for us, not only in just, they're going to reimburse us that through probably our current billing structure.
Yeah, it's going to come through. We were hoping we would get a check, but it's going to come through credits, so we'll realize this savings over time. So if department heads see that they have a big credit, that's why. It's because some of these things were added over time that shouldn't have been added. And so we're diligently watching, some of these other fees as well. And then there was another project he was doing, I think it was a threshold discount, because we're going to combine and we can get a better rate with the amount if we're looking at all of our accounts. So that's part of the project too.
So we appreciate, to Bill's comment, right, every tax dollar obviously matters, and $12,000 this year in findings already is significant, let alone the ongoing cost cost savings, right, for each additional year. So it's significant, and the way that we pay this organization is just a percentage of the cost savings that they do. So we're not actually paying them out of anything other than what he can save us. And so it's been a really great partnership for us, and it's been very effective, and the value proposition certainly has been shown and proven already. So we appreciate his efforts and the work that's been done there. And he's going to continue to look and see as they do these additional projects. I'm sure that they'll find some more savings for us as well, so.
I'm surprised that we aren't tax exempt on all of that.
Well, we should be.
That's what a lot of it was.
That's the problem, we should be.
Is that we weren't, they were charging us taxes on so many of those utility hookups that shouldn't have been. And so Rocky Mountain's now identifying all of that, and they're reimbursing that through credits and changing those codes so that we're coded right in each one of those findings, so.
So how far back can we go?
I don't know, I think he went back 5 years. So I think he went back 5 years, and so, yeah, I mean, obviously, moving forward, it's been a good thing for us, right? I mean, it's just as additional expense savings that is being realized.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange if you look at some of the billings, it would just like creep on, like, and if you didn't catch it, it would just be one of the taxes, not all of them. So, and we just need to be careful of what
This
we're
is a very
spending.
complicated and difficult thing. If you look at our utilities, not only taxes, but with certain things, there's volume discounts. And we was using way over the volume, and they give those discounts if you're watching. But for Bonnie's office to look at all those utility bills and be able to determine are they right or wrong is.
Yeah,
Let's just
it'd
say
be
that.
impossible for them,
any
right?
of us, it becomes impossible.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that Pacific Corp or Rocky Mountain, whoever initially signed up the county buildings, they should have, at that time, just said, these guys are tax exempt because it's government entity.
You would think.
Well, I, without being opposing, I guess, all the utilities companies do make a lot of mistakes. It just, in landfill, you know, your landfill bill is on Rocky Mountain's Utilities Company. It is taken Angie over a year or 2 years after constant pestering to put in Rocky Mountain, to get them to put the landfill bill on certain new buildings. Adam sends a occupation permit, and Angie sends it in, and we've gone a year and a half, 2 years, and they've never put it on their bill yet. Also, we have people who have left, who have shut down their utility, and they come back a year later, and they're still getting this bill from Rocky Mountain Power. So I guess your comment about these guys are gonna do this right, no, it's gonna get done, but it is not gonna get done in our favor, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that we shine a light on it and look
Yeah.
at it, because they make mistakes, and in this instance, they found out, well, they just had an employee, you know, the manager said, we just had an employee that
Coded it wrong.
didn't
and-
follow through, coded it
Yeah.
wrong or whatever, you know.
So it's been a really good
I don't think they
use.
intentionally do it. There's no intention here, it's just that it don't get done.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
been-
it's a good thing we got Doge working in the county.
Yeah, it's been a really good use of
This
county
is a-
resources
this is a Doge.
to identify these areas of cost savings, because it will be significant cost savings, especially moving forward. So, anyway,
Okay,
thanks, you guys.
thanks.
Okay, surplus is under the auditor, just so you're
Oh,
aware.
okay.
And, I mean, even though he's fleet, and these have to do with fleet, but you've already approved the transfer of the 4 vehicles from the sheriff's office to the road, and then from the road to the landfill. But we didn't set a value where it's transferring from fund to fund. We do need to do a journal entry for the value, because those other funds are reported on our financial statements as well. So
Thank you.
So we just highlighted Kelly Blue Book, the value, but it's up to the board to decide the value of those vehicles.
That's typically what we do.
Pardon?
Do we typically just use Kelly Blue Book?
Yeah, or, I mean, on the trailer, it was discussed, you know, between the two executive authorities for the landfill and the road on that trailer, so.
Yeah, as long as
It's
we're
hard-
consistent, I'm happy.
Yeah. The two newer ones, it just gives a set price. The other two they're older, it gives a range. And after talking with Jacob, Fleet Manager, he suggests low book value because they're pretty used for those that give a range. If you want to look at something different from what this suggestion is from the Kelly Blue Book, because it doesn't consider hours, it just considers mileage on those vehicles. Hours on the engine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly with the sheriff's vehicles, right? Because they have high engine hours, even though mileage isn't significantly high, the engine hours are super high on those because they do need those running for policy, right? So.
Got a motion to accept these? And
I
then the
move that
low?
we accept the transfers.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
Any appointments to boards, Marquis?
Not unless the three of you have contacted your board. We did have a special service district 8 discussion, but we found that it does need to be noticed, so we'll have to work through that.
Okay.
So no, I don't think.
And do we know yet, I guess I don't know for sure where's the best way to find out if some of the terms do expire or not? Because some of the boards didn't think that the terms actually expired if they wanted to keep staying on. Well, the term would end, but if they wanted to stay on, then they could.
So there's no limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the rodeo gave me a list of everybody on their board, but no dates whatsoever, and I don't think they know the dates.
And that one I received and stuff like that. Depends on their bylaws. Depends on what those say. I don't have copies of all bylaws.
Okay.
So we have to just see if they can find some bylaws.
Yes, with Attorney Harris's direction to.
Yeah, if you can, let's get copies of all the bylaws.
Okay. Okay, possible approval of application for settlement of deferral for delinquent property tax. Okay, any other discussion by commissioners, county attorney, elected officials, and secretary?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion that we go into BOE.
I make a motion that we go into BOE.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Kurt, is that the one we're gonna discuss first then? Sounds good. Okay.
So I'm Kurt Forsyth, hospital president for Intermountain Delta and Fillmore Hospitals. And we've got
Bentley Pay, I work in Intermountain's real estate.
And Evelyn Warnick, and I'm on the IHC board.
So thanks for hearing us today. We've had a few discussions in the past about the property that the Millard Care and Rehab sits on. And so we're going to get to those specific numbers. So it looks like parcel number D3872-5-1 appears to be one of the clinics that's on the property. D3872-5-2 My understanding is the hospital property parking lot extending to the ground where the care center is located. So I think that's the primary parcel number that we're here to discuss today. So I will reference the letter that the commissioners had sent directly to Bentley. This letter is dated I'm struggling to find the date. I believe it was early March. Oh, thanks. February 28th, 2025, addressed to Bentley Pay, AVP of Real Estate. In the concluding paragraph of the letter, the county has...
I'm so sorry, Mr. Forsyth. I just want to be sure. I know you had brought up a BOE discussion. Are we now discussing the 1110 item about the property?
This is the 1110 item, the Millard Care and Rehab.
Okay, so this is not a BOE discussion, this is just a Millard County Commission discussion, a regular meeting discussion.
Well, the parcel numbers that are
property
listed...
should not be in BOE discussion. The tax reduction should, but the property shouldn't be in BOE. If we're going to talk about the transfer or potential transfer of property, that don't need to be in BOE.
So that's what those property numbers are listing. The property, there's a separate item, so if that's what that agenda item is, that item was a, so every year...
Because the tax exemption goes for these pieces of property as well, right?
Right.
One of those. So the D3872-5-2...
It would be all their
is one
property.
of them that was in the request for tax exemption. But there's also 3 that are on the Fillmore side that are not listed there that were also part of that denial.
So the properties overlap. That's made it confusing.
We're happy to talk about either of the issues or I do think too, though, both those parcels they cover both the hospital as well as the care center on both. That line runs horizontally. So you have the hospital and the care center on both sides from the road all the way across.
So on the report that we submit, one of them is the White Sage Clinic building. There's another personal property building that is the Revere Clinic building. So the D3872-5-2, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my understanding, that is the full piece of property from the street to the fence near the canal that covers the hospital and the care center land.
Mr. Forsyth and Commissioners, if you're okay with it, I will go get the plat map from Sierra if you want to talk about your other issue in BOE, since I think you are technically in BOE.
Yeah, right now, we're supposed to talk about property taxes.
Okay.
And then we'll have to talk about the other issue after we go back out of BOE.
Yeah, and if you'll excuse me, I'll just go grab
So
that.
the land transfer we had scheduled to talk about after, but it appeared that the agenda item was both. And so we were trying to differentiate one or the other. So it sounds like you're saying this agenda item is the tax exemption status.
Yeah, that's what we have to talk about right
Okay.
now.
Yes.
Are we still able to have that separate discussion after the conclusion?
Yeah, but we'll have to go out of BOE when we do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so so for this part, since we're in BOE, let's just solely talk about tax exemption. And then we'll go out and then we'll talk about the land transfer or the land underneath.
Okay,
the care
sounds
center.
good.
Does that sound okay with you guys?
We're here to discuss whatever you'd like to discuss. Let me go grab my papers that I left on the floor then.
Okay.
And thank you for clarifying that. So every year, the hospitals submit a document to the county commission for review and request for continuation of tax exempt property or tax exempt status for our property. The only explanation that was provided in the denial letter, this was dated April 10th, 2025. The board is questioning the level of Intermountain's charitable gift to the community that remains within Millard County to provide a service to our local residents. So we would request some additional clarity on what questions you have. We have filed the appeal. If the commissioners are satisfied today and would like to, well, you're not yet, but after discussion, if you're satisfied and you would like to confirm that you approve the continuation, then I think that satisfies it. If you still have questions, again, that appeal has been filed, I believe, to the State Tax Commission. So, but if you could share with us some questions that you do have about how that funding or how that value stays in the county, be happy to entertain those questions. In fact, all of those answers should be in that 17-page document that you received, which is
It's this one, right?
Yep, the Delta Community Hospital, Fillmore Community Hospital 2025 Charity Plan and Report of 2024 Charitable Activities, which I recognize is a long and confusing document. It takes me several days to go through it. But if you have specific questions, happy to go through those specific questions. If you don't have specific questions, I can give a summary of how we meet each standard. I'm happy to do that.
My questions are coming from that document and this issue. I guess as I read what your proposal you're doing, as a county commissioner, I'm not seeing that effort. So personally, I'm not contending with your ability at all to get tax exemptions. I have no thing with that. And let me go through here and see, as I read your document, you talk about giving gifts to the community.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about lessening of government responsibility. You talk about needs and assessment by stakeholders. In my opinion, in the county commission in 4 years and previously, no one has ever asked us what our needs are. I think all your contributions are based at a level much higher than here. No one's really coming to ask us what your needs are. And so that part of what you're saying doing is basically not being done. The county is suggesting that you consider our needs, and we give those needs to you. The county is suggesting, as you comply with your tax reduction, that you follow the formula that you have on assessing also our needs. Basically, what you've done is assess your needs, in my particular opinion, and not assessing our needs. On the other hand, when we provide a tax exemption, what we do is, obviously, I agree with your charitable gifts and all the things you're doing. And you've assessed that end with what you're giving. When we give a tax exemption, which there's one thing I don't agree with in there, is the value of your hospitals. You're saying the only value is 300 and something. I don't agree with that. Maybe we could get an appraisal on that. We give, and I just got this number, we got 1,700 notices taxpayers, about 400 of them or 500 is commercial. The rest, about 1,200 homes that we send bills to. 300 of those homes, we give tax abatements. Tax abatement is people that are in need that can't pay their taxes, else they're going to lose their home. Why can't they pay their taxes? Because they're losing home? Because the taxes are high, maybe too high, I don't know, too high. When we give these tax exemptions and for these other charitable costs, what we do is have to raise taxes on those homes. So all I'm saying is, in your evaluation or in your application of this, you should be considering other things that's happening in our community that is compounded by us having to raise taxes because we're given, because we've given this reduction or this exemption. So I'm not contending about the actual law and everything. I'm just saying we would not suggest you do any more. We would just like to suggest that you consider some of the things that we would suggest in what you're providing to our communities. And I don't think that's been done.
We have not done that. We have not considered the
I
needs that
think you have not
commissioners have.
considered some of our needs.
To go with this, Kurt, I'm going to go to page 12, your kind of fourth section. You're saying that you're doing $4.4 million in 2024 in cash donations to local nonprofit agencies to improve health and increase access to healthcare services of residents living in Millard County. So you go to the next spot, and there's a list of people that you say you've donated to. And I go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I didn't get, they're based in Utah, but nothing that I know of in Millard County. There's no organization in Millard County directly that those proceeds are benefiting. The American Heart Association, we don't have an organization in Millard County that's directly benefiting. And by the way, and I have a pet peeve here, some of this is pet peeve, the CEO of American Heart Association is getting $4 million in wages. I know that's not on you guys, but you guys are donating to this lady getting $4 million in wages, but we can't get support like Bill is saying that we need here in Millard County. American Red Cross for Utah Community Health, or no, the American Red Cross, their CEO is at $859,000, $749,000 is their CEO, their COO. We're donating to people that don't do anything in Millard County, or you're donating to people that aren't in Millard County. The Association for Utah Community Health is up in Murray. So Central Utah Food Sharing, I can get down on that. That's I think that does involve us somewhere. Friends for Sight is in Cottonwood Heights. I doubt we see any of that money down here in Millard County. We have Millard County, but all I know of on a donation status of that $4.4 million is maybe $20,000. I could be wrong there. Just straight donations to Millard County is $20,000. We got the Millard School District, that's here in Millard County. Needs Beyond Medicine, that's up in Salt Lake. I don't think we're seeing any of that. New Horizons is here in Millard County. Rural Health Association, I can buy in on that because that's over in Richfield. Sleep in Heavenly Peace is in Richfield. I wonder if we see any of that. Stand for Kind is in Delta. The Utah Food Bank, I can get in on that. Utah Health Policy, Salt Lake, that's in Salt Lake City. Utah Nonprofits Association, Salt Lake City. Utah Peer Network, Salt Lake City. Utah Against Hunger, Salt Lake City. That's where I think Bill's coming from. You're saying you're donating $4.4 million to Millard County, and that's not the case. I'd love to see where those checks are funneling back to Millard County, because I just don't see where, when you say for the residents living in Millard County, I don't see that on most of that list. And the list that is put right in the middle, and again, I don't think this is you, Kurt. I think my opinion is I think they take $4 million, and they take that same $4 million IHC does, and goes to every single county in Utah and says, here's $4 million that IHC is donating to the county, and plus they'll add in a couple $100,000 that they are actually directly donating to the county in some way, shape, or form. And now you're telling everybody that you're donating $4 million, because I don't think you're donating $240 million to the counties in Utah.
And that's a great observation.
And I think that is what is hard for us to see is, you're saying you're doing all this good in the community, and I love you, I love the hospital, I love you being here, like, I hope you know where this is coming from, but $4 million is a lot of money. We should see that somewhere, somehow, some way, but we really don't. But yet you'll come here and tell us that, yeah, we donate to all these organizations that aren't in Millard County. And just a side note, as a nonprofit organization, I know this isn't you either, it is IHC. 2023, the wage for your COO is $6.2 million. Okay, the CFO is $8.3 million. Okay, 2023 again, so all this has gone up, probably significantly. Top 30 employees for IHC are at $60 million, and I see nothing here in Millard County. But yet your nonprofit, somebody's making a grundle of money, But yet, for us to get help with anything that we find we need with taxes, we get absolutely, $20,000. Sorry, I shouldn't say absolutely nothing, but $20,000. So that's where I'm coming from. Let me finish too, because I got some other questions. So on number one, health professional education, you say that's a donation. If I ask you to give that to me instead of certifying your nurses on an annual basis, is your hospital running? Because I assume, and I'm just basing off my experience of where I work, I have to have 40 hours of credits every year, continuing education, or else I'm not certified to do my job. But you're saying that's a benefit or donation to Millard County to fulfill a requirement that I am assuming, I don't know the industry very well, but I think I know it well enough that your nurses have to be certified or you're out of business because you won't have nurses. But yeah, you're telling me it's a donation to Millard County. Well, it's actually a function for you guys to actually stay in business. Same with your doctors. I think they have to have a certain amount of education, continuing education every year to maintain their, I don't want to say their doctorate status, but their business, their licensing, right?
Right.
How is that a benefit to us when it's actually how you guys stay in business? Like, that is required for IHC to stay in business. If you decide to, well, education is one we're going to do away with our healthcare profession, IHC no longer exists because you have no more nurses and no more doctors. The other one, Volunteer Service Governing Board, and I assume this is the board Evelyn is on.
Yep.
I think she's providing a service to IHC, but yet you're telling us that her service to you is a financial benefit to Millard County. And I don't see how that makes sense.
Okay.
You're paying her, yeah, so this one and the next one really blows my mind, because we got a board that's serving you as a hospital, but somehow you're tangling up into a financial benefit to Millard County, and it just does not make any sense to me. And I don't know everything, so you might be able to expound on some of these things. Like I said, I don't know, but when I'm looking at that, it does not make any sense. And so number 6 is the same thing, and it's a very minute amount, it shouldn't matter, but you say volunteers provide service to patients. These volunteers greet patients and visitors. So now I'm thinking, this is someone like me going into the hospital on a daily basis and giving those that are less fortunate, don't have family, I'm going in there to say hi to them. That's me giving service to IHC so they have better customer service. So how is IHC taking what I'm doing or the benefit I'm providing to them and turning it into a benefit for the county? I don't know if any of that makes sense. Sometimes I talk and it doesn't make sense, but in my mind, that's what I'm seeing is you're taking my good citizens that are willing to spend and sacrifice time to make IHC a better place, but then in turn, somehow financially turning it into you're benefiting the county, but the county's actually benefiting you in these areas, not all of them, but in these specific areas. So, sorry, those are my topics you asked,
Yeah.
what you wanted. And so that's why so that's all I have.
To follow up a little on what Trevor's saying, we provide a service through emergency services for the hospital. Obviously, we're obligated to do our county, we do a lot of transfers. If we can't pay for the transfers with what we collect, guess where that goes? That's out of those 300 abatements, county residents. So we're talking about the needy and the indigent. We're taking that money from the needy, those that basically can't pay their property taxes, and all we're doing is transferring. We never consider where that money's coming from, because we run these programs. If we don't return enough dollars in insurance to run these programs, it comes on our county taxes.
Can you explain that a little bit more? How it
Well,
impacts the taxes specifically?
we are allowed to collect what our county operation comes from. So if we aren't paying for ambulance service and we don't get no help doing it, then we collect the money out of, that money comes from our general fund. And that's where we are. We're generally a deficit in that. That money comes from our general fund. A portion of that general fund, we raise the taxes on everybody, and that's what I said, we got 300 circuit breaker and other abatements in taxes that people, 300 homes that don't pay their taxes, that don't pay their property tax through a variety of different reasons.
I think
And
what
that's
is,
where that's basically just shifted to. So we're taking one group of our society and caring for them, but we're robbing the property taxes of those that can't pay their taxes.
what he's referring to is with the ambulance, the insurance usually, on average, only pays for 60% of what our EMS takes care of each year. And so then the county tries to collect the other 40%, but we cannot collect all that, and so we end up having to make that up out of our general fund, and it's all the county residents that have to make up that difference.
And I guess we think that ought to be considered in your contributions. That this is, if you want to contribute to Millard County, that would be helpful to contribute that.
Okay, that's helpful feedback, and I've taken lots of good notes. I'm going to respond to some of that. Some of it I may not be able to respond to today, but I can get more information on. But certainly we can customize this information more for what you're looking for. This template follows what the State Tax Commission requires for those 6 standards. And so all of these items
And Kurt, excuse me, so you make sure, we've kind of previously had some things that would qualify for that. We're not opposed to you giving us some other ideas. We've presented one idea, this is what we need help with. You can customize a lot of things. We have no opposition to negotiating with you and you say, well, this help or that help, that's what we'd like. We'd just like some input. If you got a better idea that works for you better, we're fine. We would like to consider all those ideas to basically help supplement and basically take care of what we have been previously obligated to.
Yeah, and that makes
So,
sense.
go ahead.
So let me start by going to page 9. So one of the requirements is that to be a tax-exempt entity or hospital is for us to perform a community health needs assessment every 3 years. So one of those sessions is actually happening in 3 minutes at the pod. And so specific individuals have been invited to participate in that. I don't know the roster or the list. I believe I forwarded it to each one of you. In that discussion, that's where they come up with what the community at large feels are the most pressing health issues that we should be focused on addressing. If ambulance services rises to the top as one of the top 3 concerns of the community, then that would appear on this list. The one that we did 3 years ago, mental well-being, chronic disease, and social determinants of health were the 3 that were at the top of people's concerns. Social determinants of health includes not having access to food, not being able to have transportation to get to health services, other things that prevent access to health services, not having appropriate housing. And so if there are housing abatements that would qualify for some grants or things through Intermountain, then we can provide, we can have you apply for those things. But since the county owns and operates the ambulance and other things that Intermountain may have donated direct money to, Millard County is all kind of lumped into one. And so if one entity gets awarded some funding, then another entity may not qualify because that funding has already been awarded to the overall Millard County, if that makes sense. So you have needs that you are aware of. If the general community is not aware of those needs, their focus may be on suicide prevention, it may be on drug and alcohol abuse, it may be on vaping, it may be on other things, teenage pregnancies. So those are the things that the community is saying, we want the hospital and Intermountain to put effort and funding behind. And so those are the three that we've been working on for the last 3 years. Once we get the results of this one starting in 2026, we'll be working on whatever the three are that the community has said are the top priorities. So that, like I say, that meeting is happening now. There's also electronic surveys that go out, so there's a lot of ways that that we're collecting that information. There is a lot of county-specific information, but there's also a lot of aggregate information. So the prior 3 years, poor air quality was one of the three. And I basically just threw that out and said, that doesn't apply to us. We're not going to focus on that one. We're going to focus on the other two. But mental health has been on here for a long time. So going to, Trevor, I think your first question that you asked, on page 12 under section 4, we provide some suicide prevention kits in our emergency departments to people that come into the emergency department. We also have some available to those that come into the clinics. Our staff has provided CPR training. We've provided stop the bleed training for tourniquets, and the power plant actually provided the funding to purchase the supplies for us to do those trainings. So we've put the stop the bleed kits in every classroom, and we've done the training. So in 2023, that's when we reflected that donation from the power plant to provide those kits. We still continue to do the training for those kits in 2024. And so part of that is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the American Heart Association. We have helped to organize and support some of the Red Cross blood drives and things like that through our lab services. So some of these are an allocation to Millard County, saying overall Intermountain gave $100 million and Millard County's portion was $1 million or whatever. I don't know the exact numbers, but they clump them kind of together. And to your point, a lot of these organizations they do not have an exact presence in Millard County, but there is an allocation given to our hospitals for the purposes that those organizations are serving. And so like the billboards about naloxone, I'm not sure specifically which organization those support, but we have those billboards here in our county. And so somebody's paying for that. We are helping support that effort. So one point I'll make too, as you look at all of these dollars, none of it is cash. So the taxes that we would pay, so in 2023, it was about $300,000.
Well, hold on. It says during 2024, Intermountain made cash donations.
So
that says cash
we
right on your
paid
document.
cash of $15,000 to Millard County for the ambulance. So maybe I'm exaggerating when I say none. But a lot of this is allocation or value. So
Well, this is where my concern is you've made, IHC in Millard County has made Millard County a donation, but IHC, Intermountain Health, corporation is doing the rest of the cash. You may not be, but they are spending the cash, and then they're telling us they're spending the cash. You may not be.
Yeah, so the larger corporation, well, they're following a proper accounting principles. So yes, some of it is cash. We give the high schools cash. We gave you guys some cash. There is some cash. That comes from Intermountain Corporate. That doesn't come from the hospital budget. So the hospital budget in Fillmore is typically, we lose $1 million a year. That's net profit, loss of $1 million. Delta is plus $1 million profit. So basically the two hospitals together, we break even. And a lot of that is Medicare and Medicaid payments. And so let me, I guess.
See, but this battle's not with Millard County, you and Millard County. This battle's with IH, the big dogs.
Yeah.
And that's,
Because what you're indicating is that Intermountain has a lot of funding that they could be providing to the county, and what you're suggesting is that Intermountain is not.
We aren't
no,
suggesting you have.
well, actually, yes, I am, because I don't think we see all that money. There's no way Millard County is seeing $4.4 million. We're way too small of a county to not recognize the benefit of $4.4 million.
In the back there, Trevor, there's another, the total gift to the community, which are counting around is $8 million. It's not $4 million.
No, I know it in these donations, though.
Yes, okay. And
Yeah.
Kurt, I have a comment on, as you do the community health assessment, what is it, CNN or what is it?
CHNA, yep.
If you look at the item number 4 on page 12, I can't, obviously, it's not on there, but you have all other stipulations in here you can do. You look down there and it has nonprofit aid to improve health and increase access to healthcare services. I think our emergency services is a key component with increasing access to your healthcare services, with transportation, many other things. So, and even if they didn't consider that, why, these are already components you've already considered that qualify.
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying on that. Do you mind repeating the question?
Well, you said that if you wouldn't consider it until it was community healthcare needs and you says you're doing assessment. Well, that's fine if you get on that list, but you've already identified other things in your program you says that is a priority to you besides those things, which is increase access, which is something the county does directly, is increase access to your hospitals. So why does it need to be on the community assessment? When you've already allowed for it to be part of your, you've already allowed it to be part of what you do.
I think what you're saying is, so under the...
Well, what I'm saying is, you're doing much more than these 3 things. Improving
Yes.
mental health, those are your priorities, but within this document here, it has a lot of other things you've identified you're doing, which EMT service would qualify under them. We don't need to get, and, I mean, if you go through here, it says that all the time, helping improve the county, improving access. So these things are already written in your document. They don't need to come out of the committee. They're already written in your document that justifies you being able to provide those services.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so the document is written in a way to follow what the State Tax Commission requires. And what you've suggested is, at least this is what I'm understanding you're suggesting, is you don't care about the fluff. You want just the meat and potatoes of what Millard County actually is getting. So you don't necessarily care about if Intermountain has a regional priority for reducing strokes or responding to strokes. You want to know what are our 2 hospitals in Millard County doing to prevent strokes and respond to strokes?
No, we care about all that stuff. All we're saying, the total contribution, 8.5 or 4.5, we would like to have a small consideration of what we feel is a benefit for our communities. We're not saying all that other stuff is positive. What you're doing for healthcare, strokes, everything else is positive. All we're saying is we have not felt like we had a voice. This is something that we feel you could do within your structure, and you haven't felt like you could, so because of all these other things.
I think one thing where we're kind of on different pages is they're listening to community members tell what they feel is important and what they'd like them to contribute to. And we thought that they would ask the commissioners, but it wasn't the commissioners that they were asking to get the input from. They were doing it from just a group of community people, like at the meeting they're having.
Yeah, and that's an accurate assessment. So there's a lot of different viewpoints on what is priority. If somebody has a child suffering from depression, they're going to say our priority is mental health. If the high school has a lot of students that are facing a specific need, then those that are representing the high school are going to say, this is our priority. So for you as commissioners, you've got specific priorities, and we've talked with you multiple times about ambulance services, and I feel like we've provided some support, but it sounds like you feel like there's more support to be given on the
You have
emergency
provided
services
some.
side.
We would just encourage more, and that's gonna have to be voluntary. We just encourage more. We have no ability to tell you, you have to do this or have to do that.
Right.
All we're doing is saying, we're sitting down and saying, we would like more. And what we're asking, are you willing to listen to us? You know, one of the terms that's used in here is lessening of government responsibilities. We have responsibility to provide that ambulance service. We're not contending of all the other stuff you're doing. It just says, that would lessen, real plainly, that would lessen our responsibility and help our taxpayers and our citizens if you helped in that arena. Just real simple. I don't
Right.
want to oversimplify. If you helped in ambulance service, that would lessen, that's the word used in here, lessen our government responsibilities because we collect the taxes, we appropriate the taxes. That would make it easier for us to provide that service that you're a bigger beneficiary of than we are.
Yes,
I want to be just simple.
And you're fine making that comment. The assumption that you're making, though, is because Intermountain has operated these hospitals for 40-plus years, that's the status quo, and so we're lessening the government responsibility from the status quo. What that means to me is, if Intermountain wasn't operating these hospitals, who would be operating the hospitals? The county.
Well.
So we're taking that off
you
your
might
plate
think we
and saying
wouldn't. There's lots of other vendors.
Isn't Nephi a private hospital?
There's lots of other vendors out
Maybe.
there that would,
Yeah, so
I've thought
who would
about
operate?
that.
There'd be a
We,
private hospital that operate a hospital in Millard County.
we appreciate
That's
you
a
being here.
possibility,
We
yeah.
we
Not a
appreciate
guarantee.
this,
Yeah.
what you're doing, but that void would be filled if you weren't, and I suspect it wouldn't be by the county. The county just don't have the resources. We're not isolated enough. There is, all other vendors out there would eventually come in and pick that up. Now, obviously, that's a whole nother discussion. So,
Not necessarily. There are
Okay.
critical access hospitals closing throughout the country and critical access hospitals that
That's
are
probably true.
stopping delivering babies. With the backing and the support of Intermountain Health, we're not closing. We're planning to build new hospitals in the next 5 to 7 years, hopefully. And we're not discontinuing any services. We did discontinue the long-term care at Fillmore, and that was a combined decision. And there was no longer the demand on that side of the county that wasn't being met by the care center over here. So other services, we're not removing or reducing services because we have the backing of Intermountain. So, go ahead, Evelyn, you have a comment.
I do. So just one thing I wanted to tell you on a positive note is, actually, the Delta Hospital is a trauma 4,
And so is Fillmore.
and Fillmore now also. But not only that, they're able to treat our cancer patients at home now. So that's new too. And that's a benefit, you know, that's come our way, so.
Yeah, but
that's on
that
a
also,
positive.
that also costs the patient a grundle of money. The medical system, in my opinion, yes, it is a benefit. My mom was just diagnosed, and yes, if she can get treatment there, wonderful, but it's still gonna cost $100,000 to do it.
Yeah, and that's not
So,
a Delta
I-
issue,
honestly,
for sure.
Mine, I'm not here to heartburn over the EMT services in an ambulance. Like, to me, to be honest, it's a joke. I'm having a hard time comprehending some of these numbers. $1.7 million you donate to Delta, and I've just done some rough math. That's 346 patients, roughly at $5,000 apiece, or $5,000 roughly a day that you say you're donating. I would love to see a breakdown of those numbers. Patients, I know you can't give me their name, but patient X, patient Y, what they were in there for. Because I've been to the hospital enough that that seems like a lot of money, and I'm having a hard time trusting, not you. I honestly, Kurt, I hope you know, like, I know it seems, but this is upper IHC I have an issue with, because I don't trust that number. I don't trust a lot of the numbers, I guess. And that's, I'm not gonna sit here and say, hey, I want something for the ambulance. I'm having a hard time just trusting, because Evelyn is right. Yes, that is a benefit, but you're gonna charge any cancer patient that comes in there a whole lot of money. And while you're a nonprofit, I just told you what your COO and your CFO and all those guys are making. Someone's making a lot of money. And us as a county, I feel like there's something wrong there.
So not to interrupt, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. When IHC sent their letter in regard to the denial, they sent the form for the appeal, and they also stated that they're requesting reconsideration of the denial at the BOE level. So I do believe they're here to ask you to reconsider that. And depending on what you do today, they asked us to hold the appeal form. So we'll know after this meeting whether we're forwarding it on to the State Tax Commission or not. So just to reframe that, at least, it sounds like there may be questions about potential details regarding the numbers you've been provided, the appraised value of the IHC's property, as well as donations. I don't know if it's appropriate to consider information going forward and make a decision for this year, but that is, I believe, what the request is.
Yeah, that's accurate, and I haven't answered all of your questions. I'm happy to continue answering or try to put them in an email. I think this is healthy discussion. I mean, obviously, I work for Intermountain. I feel like they provide a lot of value to me as someone who's trying to help advance healthcare in this area and be able to bring new services and improve the services that we have. So I'm happy to address each of the individual concerns or questions that have been raised. Really, what it boils down to is, again, in 2023, I didn't even calculate the number for 2024, but in 2023, if we were not a tax-exempt organization, we could have paid $300,000 in taxes. The one thing that we do that
where does that appraisal, is that your appraisal, or?
Where's that come from?
What's that?
It comes from the county assessor. The county assessor, we don't state the value.
Do we assess, does our county assess your hospital? Or we don't assess the hospitals.
Yeah,
I don't know where that number's coming from, I guess.
Yeah, we can get.
Should we get an assessment? Should we have an assessment? Because see, that's what I said, that's one of the numbers I disagree with. We don't assess the hospitals because you've been exempt. We don't assess the churches, we don't assess the hospitals. So it don't come from our county, that number don't.
That could be some carryover.
And maybe in negotiating, we need to get a number, so we have a number. I suspect it's gonna be a little higher than that, but I don't know.
Again, we're not negotiating this. This is just
Yeah,
a decision
okay.
about the denial.
Right, but what we're saying is that our charity care, so when somebody comes in and they can't afford their care, similar to your abatements, somebody comes in and they have an emergency room bill of $5,000, our charity care allows them to submit an application, and they can either pay $0 or $500 or whatever it is that is deemed that they can afford based on their financial circumstances. So just that charity care alone, so let's say, for example, they have a $5,000 ER bill, and we say you can afford to pay $500, so we're gonna write off the other $2,500. So we're saying that is of value to the residents of the county.
No,
Again, it's a value, not an actual cash number.
Yeah.
Because if that patient had insurance, their insurance would pay that $2,500, and then we would write off the $500. That's the way that the insurances work. So if if we're saying that we have, I don't remember what that specific charity care number was, what it was like $3 million or something.
It's 1.7 for
Yeah,
Delta.
1.7, so 1.7 million in charity care, so that amount alone exceeds the taxable amount that we would pay. But again, it's a value, it's not cash.
No, yeah, and I totally understand that.
So if we
But
left
I'm having a hard
everything
time
else.
believing,
Yeah, if we left everything else out of the report, that one item theoretically should qualify as for the tax exemption. We put the other stuff in there to demonstrate the good things that we're trying to do for the community. And yes, some of it is potentially questionable. I believe it's accurate as much as we can be based on our accounting and the way that we allocate different amounts to different counties.
yeah. No, and I get that, but I know we need to wrap this up, but that's my concern is it actually $1.7 million worth of care?
I think Trevor wants you to provide,
If you could provide, whether it was 50 patients that averaged out $20,000 or 300.
Yeah, I can give you averages. Averages aren't really gonna mean anything, because we may have one patient that comes into the emergency room. Like, I'll give you my personal example. I came to the emergency room with my daughter. She had something in her ear that we couldn't dislodge at home, so we came to the emergency room. We were there for 30 minutes. They got it dislodged, $1,800. Now, I have an HSA, so all of that $1,800 comes out of my pocket. Is that inflated? Is that an unreasonable amount for an emergency visit that took 30 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
It's not, because in Nebraska, I had an emergency visit for my son to pull a piece of wood out of his leg, and it was $1,600. So it's the same no matter where you go in a rural hospital. All of the charges is the billed amount, and if insurance will pay for it, that's great. But if it comes out of pocket, it becomes a lot harder to swallow that. So if somebody has a colonoscopy and it costs $3,000 for a screening colonoscopy, the insurance pays 100%. But if they find something during that screening colonoscopy, then all of a sudden it becomes diagnostic, not preventative, and then the patient has to pay $3,000. That's standard across the industry. That's not specific to Intermountain. That's not specific to Delta or Fillmore Hospital. That's just the way the dollars work. That's why we have insurance companies to pay those extremely high amounts for cancer care, for dialysis, for orthopedic surgery. Yes, healthcare is extremely, extremely expensive. We are the most expensive country in the world for healthcare costs.
and I mean, the equipment is very expensive, and you also have to pay for personnel to be there whether there's an emergency or not. I mean, there's things like that we have to consider, but
We do, and Medicare reimburses us some of that. That's why it's hard to give an average, because Medicare will actually reimburse us. Even if we have 0 patients in the hospital, we still have to have a minimum of 3 people in the hospital. And we're paying them. We can't just close the doors and say, hey, ring the doorbell and we'll come from home if you have an emergency. So there's a lot of regulatory requirements for small hospitals. So we have that extra benefit from Medicare, that they pay a little extra to help cover some of those costs. We have the extra benefit of some operational things for Intermountain. So there are things that, as an independent hospital, we would have to pay for, that we pay less for as a portion of the overall cost, because Intermountain purchases it. With 33 hospitals, they get a bulk discount. So like IT services, our emergency medical record, various things like that. But one other quick example, and I know we need to conclude here, but we did not have security guards for almost 40 years. We have patients that are coming in with behavioral health needs into the emergency room that are causing harm to our caregivers that are trying to provide them treatment. We added security guards 2 years ago, and those incidences have pretty much dropped to none. Law enforcement has been an incredible help all of those years. They're still an incredible help. They're suffering with not having enough help and support. We would love to be able to give them some funding or help them to provide better benefit to incentivize people to join the force, because we need them. We can't survive without them, and still we only have security overnight and on the weekends. But again, that's a benefit that we're adding to the entire community, because now we have a safer environment in our hospitals for people to work there, for people to be treated there. And so yes, there is a a value to the entire community. And we will listen to what things you have passion about, what things from a healthcare perspective you feel like need to be addressed. And we've expressed this. We're willing to help. We want to help. Not always are we able to help, whether it be a regulatory thing or maybe even Intermountain policy. I don't know. Sometimes there are things that we can do. Sometimes there are things that we can't. But I will take this feedback back to our group that puts this report together. We'll customize it more for the specific things that are directly benefiting to the community. But I would ask, as Elise mentioned, to reconsider our tax exempt status because we do meet the 6 standards. We've demonstrated that in the report. I get some of the numbers don't quite make sense. I agree with some of your concerns and your comments. And we'll try to clarify those or remove those that are not applicable. But yeah, I would at this time request to reconsider. And then if we do feel like we need to have more discussion to clarify some of those things, I'm happy to have additional discussions.
Well, I'm like you, I think the discussion's been good, and, you know, Trevor's brought up some statistics and figures, and, you know, we have kind of different concerns. You give this document, and my concern is you haven't applied this document to what you're actually doing, because I don't think we've had consideration. You just brought up law enforcement. You know, that's a great benefit for you, but guess who pays for that?
You guys.
Okay, there's another instance right there. You're saying we get the benefit of this, that's fine. I don't care who gets the benefit, but we get the bill. That's what I'm saying. Access to your hospital. You have the benefit, you're telling everybody, look what we do for you, but we pay the bill. I'm just saying at some point in time that we would like to continue the discussions. And in light of that, we'll see how this goes. I'm going to suggest that we don't withdraw the appeal because I think the appeal has given us a platform to sit down and discuss what we want to do. I think that we went through this last year, we withdrew the appeal, and the discussions kind of quit. And Kurt, I will tell you that I'm not happy you're in the middle because you're getting squeezed.
Squeeze me all you
And
want.
obviously you have a role, but I think the same thing Trevor says. I'm not really excited about that, and this is nothing about our local board or everything else, because I think a lot of these decisions are higher. So I make that motion.
First of all, though, I was just curious, Auditor Smith, would we have time if we delay this decision? Would the state allow us more time to have these guys come back with more specific numbers on how it actually affects our county? Or do we have to have a decision right now? Okay.
The appeal date would be effective on the 9th, so the 30 days to appeal, which, again, we've submitted the appeal, so I don't know if that gives us longer than the 9th or not.
As far as the appeal goes, I think the county will have to send that to the state tax commission to preserve your rights. But if the information, I don't know if Vicki, or I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry for all the commissioners for using your first name.
That's okay. I'm not offended.
If she wants to move forward and get more numbers and that motion passes, that would be sent in to preserve your appeal rights. I think she just wonders how much time the county has to consider that. Because you could always withdraw an appeal.
That's true.
We meet on the 20th, the tax rolls due on the 22nd. And I don't, even now, I don't think the assessor would really have a ton of time to go down and do an assessment. She did text me, she doesn't have measurements, she doesn't have any data on this, on the building and structures themselves. They don't assess things that have been exempt in the past or in other areas. So, and I don't know, the standards, I think it was due by now, but
I probably can't hear you because it's just
Yeah.
too.
I'm glad you can't hear, 'cause I can't hear. I don't know.
But in other words, if we still say that we're denying their tax exempt status, then they can appeal and they'll have 30 days before they actually have to pay the bill.
No, they don't pay the bill, it goes to tax commission.
Yeah, but I mean, it goes to the state.
You don't have a regular hearing, you can have any mitigation or anything else. You just, the only reason I do this is it furthers our discussion to maybe answer for them and us so that we can find something that we can live with. So it just, it continues the discussion. If we turn that around while the discussion's over, it just continues our discussion. If the discussion's helpful, then we can not be, then we can keep the appeal. If the discussion isn't helpful, then we can change.
Could it be continued, to your point, so that it's not a...
Yeah, I want the discussion, I want the discussion to continue, because I don't think we've arrived at the best solution for you and us.
I don't think
we should
that
fight that.
the state has the deadlines, and that's what's, so you can't just continue and try and put it on pause, because you have so many days to appeal, and then the state.
If we appeal it,
But-
a little out of my expertise, but if we appeal it to hold our ability to appeal it, and then
No,
BOE
we deny, if that motion was, if we deny the appeal, I think it goes to tax commission.
But in the meantime,
And they can hold mitigation or whatever they want.
in the meantime, though, we can still have the conversations and then decide to accept the appeal, right, Bill?
Yes, mhm.
So it wouldn't have to necessarily go, if
At
the
any
state
point
tax
in time,
commission
one
says, hey,
party
we're gonna
could-
meet May 30th, we could still get together and further our discussion before it gets there and then decide, never mind, and just let the state tax commission know that, never mind, we're settled.
It don't tie either one's hands at any point in time either.
So,
Yeah,
I guess just in the mood to move on. I'm with Bill, so Vicky, if you don't want to second the motion, then I am.
I mean, I
We
can
could
see
further
where
have the
there are a
conversation.
lot of expenses, but I like this conversation. I want to see it continue, but eventually I think that they should end up getting their tax exempt status.
I recognize that a motion's been made, but if the main incentive to deny is to continue the conversation, I'm happy to come every meeting or once a quarter or however often you feel. So I would be the main ambassador for whatever resources you're looking for, whatever, like you mentioned, the ambulance, the care center, law enforcement, like, I would be the one to help get those resources. Again, it may not fall into these same categories. It probably is going to be the other stuff that you mentioned that's not part of those three priorities. But I'm happy to come as frequently as you would like me to come and be that intermediary between the two.
Well, and we feel that, and if this discussion is maybe, these are some things you can go back and discuss with maybe some of your superiors or those making the decisions. So if that's helpful to you, then you could come back and return and maybe, I think you maybe got a good understanding where we're going or where we want to go and what some of the needs are. And so that might be helpful for you too, to take time to go back and come back and report again on some of the questions we've had.
I like the discussion, but I don't know which way I should vote. Well, you can take care of it, so
Okay,
I'll
I'll-
let you second it.
I'll step from the chair and second the motion.
All in favor?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
No.
okay. I'll entertain a motion to go out of BOE.
I second that. I make a motion, I make a motion to go out of BOE.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And thanks for the discussion. That was nice.
Are we going to move into the property discussion or not?
What's that?
I have just one thing for possible review of county policies and contracts. discussed an agreement between the county and Mitch Bartholomew and Christina Stevens that has been executed. It just needs action for ratification.
So we just need to ratify it and send. Is this it?
Is it something we already discussed? What's it for?
I make a motion that we ratify the settlement agreement between, who all do I need to say?
Just the county and Mitch Bartholomew and Christina Stevens.
Between the county and Mitch Bartholomew and Christina Stevens.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You need this one? Do you have the child abuse prevention one? Did I give you that, or is this the second copy?
Yes, it's a resolution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want to move into the other, can we move into the other IHC? Deal? Okay.
You guys didn't even get your chairs cooled off before you came back.
Do you want to state our names again?
Yeah, sure.
Kurt Forsyth, the hospital president for Delta and Fillmore Hospitals.
Bentley Pay with Intermountains Real Estate.
Can you say it a little bit louder?
Yeah, Bentley Pay. It's Bentley Pay. And sorry, I lost my voice a couple weeks ago, and it's slow coming back.
Evelyn Warnick, IHC Board.
Okay, so now we've got the property maps here. It looks like we've got the,
There's just two pieces, right?
yeah, so the D387252, that says Intermountain Healthcare, that does go from the street to the canal fence, or the fence next to the canal. So that encompasses the entirety of the hospital grounds and the Millard Care and Rehab grounds. So the letter, sorry, let me refer to that again. The letter submitted by the county commissioners to Bentley directly on February 28th, February 20th, excuse me, 2025, addressed to Bentley Pay, AVP of Real Estate for Intermountain Health. In the final paragraph, request the property on which the facility sits be subdivided from the current parcel, and that Intermountain Healthcare transfer title via quitclaim deed to Millard County for the subdivided land. This will result in the county owning the facility and the ground on which it sits. So that's the request the county has made. We have had a handful of discussions over the years with Jeff Christensen, the administrator at the care center, and expressed potentially it would make sense to do. To our understanding, we've never actually said no. We've said we don't know what our long-term plans are with rebuilding our hospitals. So we've submitted those proposals to rebuild a hospital. We're on a 5-year plan, which doesn't guarantee that we'll be actually approved in 5 years, but at least we're taking the steps to get a new hospital approved, both in Delta and in Fillmore. There's a possibility it could take 10 years, 15 years. We're hopeful that we have a timeline of 5 to 7 years and that both hospitals will be approved. Some of the reasoning is that the buildings that we're currently in are not slab on grade. They're modular units that are connected with now add-ons. So they're not, I mean, they are structurally sound, but we don't expect them to be structurally sound for 10 or 15 more years. So without doing a lot of renovation, we don't believe that they're going to be sufficient for what we need in the next 10 to 15 years. So we're making those proposals We do have some land in Fillmore. We don't have any additional land to build on in Delta, so we are looking at land. In Fillmore, we don't have quite enough land, and so, again, we're in the very early stages of this because we think we're 5 to 7 years away from getting approval, and then, who knows, a year to design, a year and a half to build. So we're currently looking at like 2030 to 2032 before we actually have new structures. So what we've said regarding the land that the care center sits on is until we know a better direction, like timing of when we're going to get approved, where the new hospitals will sit as far as land that's available that we can purchase, that we would just keep things status quo. As is stated in the letter, the land lease is a 40-year land lease. It's $1 a year, so it's not cumbersome or beneficial to either side. And so our preference has been to maintain the status quo until we have a better picture of what the long-term outlook is going to be. Do you have anything to add, Bentley?
No, I think from our perspective, we've exchanged some emails. It's sometimes hard things get lost in translation in an email and in phone calls. And so I really wanted to come down to understand what the county's perspective was on it. It's pretty typical for us to control the land around our hospital to make sure it has adequate access and our patients are taken care of. So to Kirk's point, I don't think we've ever said, this is a hostile no or anything like that. I from my perspective, just wanted to understand what the issues were. It doesn't sound like it's an economic theme because it's currently $0. So really here to listen what the issues are and see if there's some solutions we can come up with.
So I guess,
Go ahead, Bill.
so I guess our concern is, we have a several $million building on your property. So is your intent, if you need that property, to have us to purchase our building, or just, do we have to tear it down? What kind of agreement we got? I mean, is that what you're saying, if the
Yeah,
40
that's
year?
the question I have, is you want to hold off and see what you want to do with some property that has a building on it, that's a fairly new building. You're just going to be like, well, we want to build our building here, so you're going to have to tear your building down. We don't know what you need. How do you utilize that piece of property without just coming in and saying, well, you're tearing that building down because we're going to build on it?
I don't think we can under the ground lease. I mean, I think the county has rights to the ground for however many years it is, but that certainly is not our intent.
Well, I know, but and I guess, I can't rack around my brain why you think you need it, if you're not gonna make us tear our building down. Like what?
So
What are you gonna use the ground for?
So let me give you a couple scenarios. So there's no guarantees in anything that we're going to do in the future. So let's say, for example, when we request, or we put forth the proposal to build 2 new hospitals, and Intermountain comes back and says, we can't afford 2. There's no other county in the state other than Beaver that has 2 hospitals in the same county, and they operate very differently in Beaver than we do here. So we're going to combine. So then what? So then we buy property in McCormick that's in the center, and then with the property that's here, at that point, I believe you guys have first right of refusal to anything that we do. So you guys could purchase the hospital building, the land that the hospital is on, or I don't know how that would all work. We quit claim part of it or all of it for the land itself. So that's one potential scenario, right? Another potential scenario is there is some land around the current hospital. Let's say we purchase that and we come to an agreement that Intermountain manages the care center again. And then we build a new care center or help build a new care center wherever the new hospital is that's close by. Again, no guarantees, just options, right? It's been a while since I read the land lease. I probably should have read it before I came. I apologize. But yeah, you guys do have first right of refusal for whatever we do with the land that the hospital is on, the land that the clinic is on, or the land that the care center is on. And so we're not going to come in and say, you guys have to vacate or you guys have to destroy that building. Like, the building is your property, so we don't have any right over that itself. What the rub has been in the past is it's been a long cumbersome process to get Intermountain to approve the expansion of the dining area, the ramp up from the lower level up to the clinic. And so we're committed to improve that timeline so that those approvals don't take as long. Some of those were, when I was very first early on, I didn't have a clue who Bentley was, and so it took me a while to figure out who the right person to go to. So, no, we don't intend to put you in a damaging situation. Another possible scenario, we give you the land and then you sell it to someone else, right? So you just profited several hundred millions of dollars because we decided to give you the land back. Now, if that's something the county wants to do, and that's a spoken intention to say, hey, we've got 2 offers on the table, we're actually gonna sell the business, and we need the land and the building together in order to do that. Okay, we'll work through that. That's not a problem.
Why can't we work through it now? From what I understand, there is no intention to sell it, and there is some economic impact, because if we want to build another Millard Care and Rehab over on this side, and would like to use that as collateral, the bank's not gonna let us use that as collateral because we don't own property underneath it. There's no surety for a bank to say, hey, yeah, we'll loan you money. So yes, it does have an economic impact if we want to expand and grow on this side of the county and use that as the sole source of, lien or,
Has the bank said that, they wouldn't do it without, the banks will lean on assets, building assets?
They haven't told me that specifically, but I've never met a bank that'll, on that one. But yeah, if I tried to sell my house and it wasn't owned by the property, a bank wouldn't loan a lender money to buy a house without the property.
Well,
But we
what
haven't
Trevor's
explored
saying-
that option of trying to sell it, as far as I
Right.
know.
It really don't.
But
really-
it does have economic impact to us.
What you're telling us, and you've created your scenario, and yeah, what if we did have deficit tax collections? There's several companies that, I've been approached, we have no intention on selling. What if we want to sell the care center to pay our bills? I mean, there's no future for us. You've basically tied our hands. We've just talked an hour about how you want to help communities, and we're a good community, and you want to help communities, and when we ask you, you got our hands tied. I mean, you just promoted IHC to us for an hour, and now you've tied our hands because we have the care center, and we can't do nothing. We're saying, maybe give us a price, maybe we should buy it, but we're just asking for, you talk about all this $7 or $8 million you're putting back. What about just giving us the property back? So you untie our hands. We have no ability, like Trevor says, we have no ability to do anything. We put the improvements in that building, and it's a great facility. We have a great manager. We haven't, you was involved, or IHC was involved that one time. But you're really tying our hands after you just told us for an hour, we're the best partners you could ever have, and yet we have this care facility we can't do nothing with, and you've tied our hands. All I'm saying is be consistent. And I guess in my short existence, we get this, maybe, I would like more yes or no, or go to heck or whatever, so we can proceed maybe a different way. Maybe there's some other options. If you have another option, but I don't know if we're willing to be handcuffed for 20 or 30 more years. Yeah, the lease is great, but if we ever wanted or needed to do anything, we have no ability to do it. We're putting our costs and expenses, we just put, a couple of years ago, built a new, as you know, new cafeteria, we did good, but our hands are tied, and we're only asking for that portion of what that building's on, nothing else. Just that portion of what that building's on. I think it's poor business for us as a county to continue to proceed and hope something good may happen. That's, our responsibility with these commissioners is manage our budgets, manage our assets, And we get criticized like you don't understand. We get criticized because of all these things that's happened when all we're trying to do is protect our taxpayers. This is in the best interest of our property taxpayers, that we take their money and put in there, and we have the ability to do it. That's in our best interest. That's what my job is.
So how
I have
does-
to look at the budget, and I have to decide what's in the best interest of the taxpayers of Millard County. And sometimes we get criticized because of that. Well, you're not good partners, you're not good players. No, my role is to balance the budget. My role is to collect taxes and do the best job I can. If I was in private business, this is a poor deal, what we did there. We should have did this 10, 15 years ago. It is a poor relationship, and we'd like you to, we're asking you to consider helping us out with this and doing something different.
So help me understand how it's impacting the taxpayers negatively. Because again, we indicated there's no financial detriment or benefit the way that the land lease is currently structured.
Because our taxpayers has put 6, 7, we haven't appraised that, they put several $1 million in that building. We've created an investment for them that they can't cash in. What can they do with it? If someone comes tomorrow and says we want to buy it, can we sell it? No, we have taken their money and we put it away, and they benefit with some care, but we can't use their assets. If we needed to sell it or transfer some, like Trevor brought up an example, we can't use those assets. It's a negative effect on the dollars we've invested.
So,
I mean, if we would have put that in the bank, we could have got interest or something, and we're not. All we did is put their tax dollars there, and we can't. If there are several management firms and operations that I'm sure would love to buy it. That isn't our intent at all. But if we decided sometime, if someone decided we need this money, we don't want to be in this business, myself, I'm reluctant to have the county do a bunch of services and businesses. I don't think that's your job. But if we wanted to, we can't do nothing. We're handcuffed. I mean, you would not build a home on someone else's property. I would not invest in my home on, so why would I do that for government? It's the same thing. Why would I invest my taxpayers' dollars in a facility that my hands are tied, that I don't have the property? I wouldn't build my house on someone else's property. Go ahead, Trevor.
I have another question. If you were, I mean, I don't know if this would help, but if the county agreed, just like you have given the county right of first refusal on the rest of that ground in that area where the hospital is now, if you guys decide to sell, would it help if the county would say, if you will sell us that property, we will also give you right of first refusal if we decided to sell it sometime?
Yeah, I mean, I think right of first refusal and at a minimum some use restrictions, right? So you couldn't sell to a competitor, for example. There would be things that we would protect our interests around our property. And I think it's very typical. I think it's helpful to understand your perspective, because in commercial side, or even in our facilities, we often own the ground, but in some situations we ground lease. It's not atypical for a business to ground lease. Most of our charitable uses for our property are under ground leases, where we give them $1 a year, and we control the campus, because that's kind of what we do around our campus. And so we have situations like that all over our system, where it's either a county or a charitable organization is under a ground lease at $0, or we may we lease the ground from the University of Utah, where Primary Children's is. And we've invested hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars there. So that's sort of some of the disconnect, is that from a real estate perspective, it didn't seem disadvantageous from my view to have a ground lease that's as enforceable, it's lienable, it's as anything else is fee title when it's long enough. So I didn't know if it was an issue of it's not long enough, there are terms that we don't think protect us, and certainly those are things we would talk about. We're not trying to hurt the county in that way, but maybe there's just a difference of opinion on the rights of a ground lease.
I think I disagree with Bill a little bit. I don't know if it necessarily is hurting the county at the moment, but but in the sense I do agree with him, is it does tie the hands of the county and what we would like to do with that, or what we would, I've already expressed kind of what we'd like to maybe do in the future. I also you know, I understand, I haven't thought of it from the competitor side, you know, if you guys move and leave the hospital there, and we've all of a sudden sold the care center to a competitor, they come in and now all of a sudden there's a private hospital right next to you guys. Now, maybe that didn't cross your guys' mind either, but that kind of.
Surgical center.
Yeah, that kind of crossed my mind, that maybe I can see some hesitancy there. So if there's any type of stipulation we can put in a contract, and the one I thought of, I thought of what Vicky thought of. But the one I thought of is if you are concerned about the value of the property, is, hey, if we do sell it, then you in turn will get the value in some type of monetary, well, not some, but in monetary means of the sale, and we'll get the value of the building of the sale. I don't know, it'd be nice to come to some terms where maybe you guys feel comfortable
In the current.
giving us or deeding us the property, but where you guys will still feel comfortable and secure, but really, our hands are tied, we can't do a lot with it, and we would like to be able to have the freedom, some freedom.
I totally understand, and that's generally our preference, and to own the ground that we operate on, so I get the perspective. Usually, when we think about all of our hospital campuses, we almost always regret when we let go of fee title when property is adjacent to our hospital. I've spent the last 8 years trying to buy back one condo at a time on our Logan campus, because 30 years ago, someone decided to transfer title, and we regret it. Utah Valley, the same thing. And so we've been burned so many times when we lose. So you say the county's hands are a little tied. Well, it's not that, great, we revel in that, but that's a little bit by design in a ground lease, because we have some say as to, you know, those buildings literally connect.
Yeah.
So we do have an interest in preserving our hospital campus and what happens next to them, and so some of that is by design in a ground lease, because it keeps Intermountain at the table as to what happens on property immediately adjacent, right? So if we didn't have any ability to influence how driveways access back into there, or, you know, parking lot, and that started messing with our hospital, again, we just generally regretted that. And so we are pretty protective of space right around our hospital. And so I think that's why we were coming at it from a perspective of, you know, whether it's in a fee title within, you know, some other restrictions or ability to cooperate. I think that's what our design is. Just typically speaking, that's our stance, and that's why. Are there exceptions to that? Sure. You know, if there's a compelling reason here or political reason, then we do things that are out of standard. But that's why we generally try to protect the ground around our house.
Yeah.
In the current lease agreement, is it set up so you guys just can't decide to just kick the county off of there and say, we're taking over and you guys are out of luck?
For however long it is. And if that's the thing, and if we want to extend it, or we want to modify it, or say, look, if you don't respond in a week, it's de facto approval of whatever we want to do. If there are things like that that would grease the skids, make it easier, we're totally open to that. But that's what I want.
Do you know how long the current lease goes for?
It's a 40-year lease.
Yeah.
Entered into 2004. You're 21 years into a 40-year lease.
It's what?
You're 21 years into a 40-year lease.
Okay, so we got 19 more years.
Well, I think we'd like to come to some type of agreement that isn't a lease agreement. And I don't know if you guys, if we could get together and figure out what is, because I get the competitor side, and I get you want to kind of control, but I hope you can see what, we'd like to have some options as well.
Both sides
But-
need to
but can
be
we come up
protected.
with some option or some contract where we both where we have a little bit more freedom, and yet maybe you guys do have a little bit control of a potential sale or something. I'm not saying a sale, but just some type of agreement where it is deeded to us. I don't know, because we do want it, but we've got to figure out how to, where we're both happy. And I can come back to take your future hospital plans out the side. What would you do with that piece of property? If that's it, take everything away from that side, that's all it is that piece of property on where that building is at.
It's hard to predict scenarios, like I just said, what we ended
Yeah.
up with Reading, because at the time, it seemed like a great decision. And
Yeah.
then we sell something, and then turns out that it closes, or somebody else moves in, and then it runs ragged, and it's an eyesore. I mean, it's, I don't want to go through like a parade of horribles, but there are enough things that we would say end up happening in neighboring property to our hospitals that
Yeah.
it's beneficial to us to have some influence as to what happens, especially as these buildings connect. So that's, I couldn't say exactly what scenario might happen, but that's our interest in preserving some level of control around the piece of ground next to us.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is they're not connected anymore. They are, but they aren't.
There's a physical barrier.
Yeah, physically they're connected, and once we finish our next construction project, we're planning on opening that elevator back up again, which that's something I haven't considered. We'll have to confer with our legal on that, because right now.
Is that for sure?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay.
So we've got a draft agreement for that common space just off of the elevator, which I think Jeff is fairly comfortable with. Probably will need to update it because it's been a couple of years now since we've looked at that. But that may be something we need to consider too, because if now the land and the building are separately owned, there may be additional things that we didn't understand or consequences that we didn't intend by having separate ownership of the land. So since we currently have ownership of the land, we can, with restrictions, we can utilize that elevator space. But if the land and the building are two separate owners, there may be something we have to do differently that keeps the elevator closed, or
There's probably
do
some
some sort of.
setback requirements if you have a lot line going down the middle, maybe it's
Right.
grandfathered in, but.
Some type of easement or.
Yeah, some type of thing. I mean, I think that's, when we think about the various possible complications, our hope was that keeping the status quo for a little bit longer and addressing some immediate needs from the county, if there were some that were causing problems, so it allows us a little more time to do some planning, not mess with the ground lease, not have to go through title. If this all becomes a moot point, if we move down the street, then we don't have to deal with it. But if there is something that's not gonna work status quo for the county, I think certainly we're willing to go back and come up with some other possibilities. I mean, so it's.
Well, I think it'd be a lot easier to be patient if you're saying 2, 3, 4 years down the road, but when you're saying 10, 15, that's a long time and not even a guarantee. Maybe it ends up being 20 by the time a project is done and complete, and.
I think the building will fall down before that, but I agree with what you're saying. So from an operation standpoint, I think what is probably a most likely reason for us to deed the land would be to assist with opening up an assisted living on the Fillmore side, on the east side of the county. I think there's a need there. Again, because we didn't have a great demand after we opened back up after COVID, we decided to just continue without having long-term care services over there. But I think there is a need, and, maybe a smaller facility that can be a residence for people would be beneficial. And if that's a legitimate reason to do it. From an operations standpoint, again, I'm not speaking for Bentley, for property management, that would be something we'd be willing to consider. Again, it's not a yes, it's not a no, but, I mean, we're gonna be looking at some property, hopefully today. I don't think we're gonna make a decision on property. I would say if you're feeling like putting an assisted living on the east side of the county is a priority, that if we give you the land back, you can do that within the next year, I think we could have some very, very good internal discussions about whether that's agreeable. But if you're like, well, that's something we'd like to do, but it's probably gonna be 2 or 3 years down the road, I would say, give us a year to look at land and make a decision on land, because it'll take that long to actually secure land if we do find something that's suitable. And then we can come back and rediscuss. But again, like we said, just kind of keeping it status quo, but now maybe we're adding a timeline to say, okay, 1 year, we'll reassess. But do you think the intent to do assisted living is kind of a now thing, or 2 or 3 years down the road thing?
I don't know if it's immediate or a little bit longer term. I'm not for sure on that. But But that's kind of the same argument that we're making is, well, you're wanting to tie our hands for 10 to 15 years, and now you're wanting to give us a year timeline to say, hey, let's go ahead and do this, when maybe it is a 3 or 4 year down the road type of a deal. So I think that's a little unfair to give us that timeline, but yet you want to give us a quite a bit longer timeline as well.
Yeah. When you say your hands are tied, there's nothing currently planned or in the pipeline. And I get what you're saying and why you're saying it.
No, there's nothing in the pipeline. It just, we want to put us in a better position than we're in.
It's hard to have something in the pipeline if we haven't had it or even had remote discussions of even getting the property. Like, you got something, Jeff? Sorry.
The only thing I'd say is.
Come up to the mic, Jeff, and give your name.
The one thing that we knew for sure is if Intermountain was reluctant to sell or give or deed the property, we don't have a figure. If we're going to have to come and purchase land in Fillmore to build an assisted living, that's going to cost money. And we don't know if you're going to deed the land to us or if we're going to
have to come up with money to buy it.
Come up with money to buy it, and that's going to be, $100,000, $200,000, we don't know. We don't really have a starting point. And so we need an answer from you before we can start a good faith build and planning.
It would be
And so
hard
it was clear to us we needed to get an answer from Intermountain and get a deed before we went to step B. Do we have a desire to build an assisted living in Fillmore? Yes, we do.
I think we could get an answer on that, on the value of the land or whatever. I think we could take that back. And I don't know why.
I guess the other thing is I would say. The other thing I would say is we're open to any of those suggestions with the value of the land now, but I would just remind Intermountain that we all know as citizens that was a gift to Intermountain at the time.
I have a question that, Jeff, you might want to voice your opinion on. It doesn't really have anything to do with right now, but since they're going to build a hospital somewhere in the future, it sounds like it will be, that they will move and go somewhere else instead of just trying to remodel the Delta one. Is it important that, should the county consider trying to buy some ground next to where the new hospital is for a care facility? Is it important that they be close together, or doesn't it not really matter?
No, it's a convenience. I've operated care facilities that are next door, Richfield, but I've also operated them where you just build in the factor of having a van driver that's going back and forth, so we can make that work. And I think it would be easy enough to do a non-compete clause in a contract.
I also
so that could march on.
Was wondering if they do sell the Delta Hospital land and building, if the county would want to sell the care center building at the same time and just build a new one, because I don't know if it'd be that good to be that close to whatever goes in there.
Well, we don't know the best way forward, but if you're talking about a new hospital and selling the old properties, we basically got a building on there that has another landowner. That complicates it even more. I mean, I think we can get some vision of where you're at, but
I don't think we wouldn't sell that land.
the next
At
guy.
that point, I think we'd have to subdivide it
Okay.
and transfer to the county. And I don't think we have any, if Intermountain received it for free, we're not charging the county anything under a ground lease, I can't imagine that the answer is gonna be we would try to sell it for some dollar amount to the county. That doesn't make sense in my mind at all, and I'm pretty sure we would get that pushed through, so I wouldn't expect that to be the case.
And we would be grateful for that. I think the other thing is just, I forget where my thought process was. That was a great point that you made. Just in terms of down the road, we are at a crossroads in terms of the building, right? So if we're in a 40-year lease, and we're at year 21. That means 19 more years is going to be up if we don't do something. But a lot of our equipment and our roofing and a lot of the capital refurbishment is going to be needed to be upgraded, and it's going to be a long-term investment. So the question is,
And we will be reluctant to
Right.
make that investment on property we don't have. I don't
It's-
see
it's-
you
it
bring up a
begs the
point.
question.
I don't see how we're gonna have the willingness to maintain the level that we need on a care center if we don't own the property we're improving. That's gonna become a very
heating and air conditioning
difficult
units,
decision. There's gonna be-
roofing, all of
There's
it.
gonna be a natural reluctance to do anything. It'll be just get by, and that isn't in the best favor of our citizens, to just get by.
On the other hand, if that's deeded over to us and it's ours, then we can march on for another 20 to 30 years, and we can do things the right way. Well, that's all I would add to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
I don't know if there's a decision here today,
No.
but would really helpful to hear the perspectives. And, we do deals like this all the time and try to come up with win-wins. So if it's okay with the commissioners, would we take this back and come up with some structure or some ideas and then exchange those with the county and see what we can come up with?
Yeah, we would appreciate it very
We
much. if
appreciate
you would-
any exchange.
Yeah, any exchange, and any thoughts or ideas that would make it work for you guys as well as us. You know where we stand now. If you got back to the table and thought with your peers or whoever you need to think it over with and get back to us, that'd be really amazing, actually. Really appreciate it.
Bentley, we appreciate your quick response. Till it happened, we was some time, but you responded, after our letter, you responded very quickly. Like a day or two. I was actually surprised.
So, you guys have any other thoughts? Okay, we'll just, yeah.
One other just quick issue before, while you're on this. I wanted to show me an extension of the lease that was signed, extending the lease out to 2054. So it was an extra 10 years. However, the copy we have was signed by the commission and has the seal on it, but we can't find an executed copy with IHC's signature on it. If you guys happen to have a copy of that, provide us that would be.
We'll look into it, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. We'll just try and stay in touch, and when you guys, if you come up with something or can, get back with us, and we'll try and meet up again. Yeah, yes, it is. It is. Hey,
Would
thank
you
you
like
very
us to return to meet in person, or is email adequate for?
Let's do email for now,
Okay.
and then if we start to get to where we really want to get to the meat and potatoes, then let's meet back here. But if we can email for the first little bit until we find out
Okay.
maybe what direction we're heading. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Do we have a possible closed meeting? No. Okay. Then, we've got a commission work meeting after this.
We're gonna push to the next commission meeting.
Okay.
I was gonna reply that HB 144 going back to May 7th, are we on top of that?
Yeah, so Elise and I will talk about it, but yeah, we'll, let's just push because we need some stakeholders here that can't be here.
Okay.
For today's meeting to have that conversation, so.
Okay. Well then,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was a little longer today, so appreciate the patience.